The homeless boy stood barefoot in freezing Reno snow, staring at something nobody else could see. A thin, translucent membrane covering the right eye of Bruce Iron Hand Maddox's blind daughter. 6 years. 17 specialists. 0 answers. And now this silent street kid with dirt under his fingernails claimed he knew what every doctor missed. Bruce's massive hand hovered near the knife on his belt, while leather-clad bikers circled closer through the park's dying light. One wrong move. One tear from Emma. One goddamn cry. But the boy didn't flinch, didn't beg, just pointed at the little girl's eye with a trembling finger and whispered 4 words that stopped every heartbeat within 30 feet. I can fix her. If you want to see how a throwaway kid became the most dangerous man to ever earn a biker's respect, stay until the end. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. Let's see where this Brotherhood reaches tonight. The Harley-Davidson's engine died with a guttural cough that echoed off the boarded-up buildings lining 4th Street. Bruce Iron Hand Maddox kicked the stand down, his scarred knuckles white against black leather gloves worn thin from 2 decades of road and blood. February wind cut through Reno like a straight razor, carrying the smell of diesel exhaust and desperation that clung to this part of town the way smoke clung to bar ceilings. Emma sat behind him in the custom child seat he'd welded to the frame himself, her small hands still gripping his jacket, even though they'd stopped moving. 6 years old, blonde hair tangled from the ride, pink jacket zipped to her chin, and those beautiful blue eyes that had never once seen the world around her. "We're here, baby girl," Bruce said, his voice rough as gravel under tires. "The park?" Emma's voice carried that careful hope children learn when disappointment becomes routine. "Yeah, the one with the swings you like." Bruce lifted her down with the gentleness that always surprised people who'd watched him break jaws in prison yards. His cut, the sacred leather vest marking him as president of the Iron Reapers Motorcycle Club, hung heavy across his shoulders, patches and pins telling stories most civilians couldn't read. The Reaper skull on his back had been earned in ways that kept him awake some nights, staring at bedroom ceilings while Emma slept in the room down the hall. The playground looked like something out of a municipal budget cut's nightmare. Rust bled through chipped paint on the swing set. The slide had a crack running down its center that nobody had bothered to fix in years. Dead grass crunched under Bruce's boots as he guided Emma toward the swings, her small hand wrapped around 2 of his thick fingers. "Higher, Daddy!" Emma laughed once he got her moving, and for 30 seconds Bruce let himself forget about the stack of medical bills on his kitchen counter. 17 specialists over 6 years. 17 different ways to say they didn't know why his daughter was blind. 17 polite explanations that all meant the same thing. Give up hope, Mr. Maddox. Some things can't be fixed. The club had offered to help. Brothers he'd bled with, fought beside, trusted with his life. But this wasn't a problem you could solve with loyalty or violence. This was his daughter's future disappearing into permanent darkness, and every failed appointment felt like watching her slip further away from a life he couldn't give her. Movement caught his peripheral vision. 20 feet away, partially hidden behind the rusted merry-go-round, a boy sat motionless on the frozen ground. Maybe 10 years old, maybe 12. Hard to tell under the grime and oversized jacket that hung off his thin shoulders like borrowed armor. No shoes, bare feet pressed against concrete that had to be near freezing. Dark hair matted and unwashed, face blank as fresh snow. Bruce had seen that look before. In mirrors during the worst years. In the eyes of prospects who showed up at the clubhouse with nowhere else to go. In men who'd learned that invisibility was the only safety you could count on when the world decided you didn't matter. The boy wasn't watching the playground. He was watching Emma. Bruce's hand moved instinctively toward the knife he kept in his boot, every protective instinct firing at once. He'd killed men for less than staring at his daughter, but something stopped him from crossing that distance and making this kid understand what happened to people who looked at Emma the wrong way. The boy's eyes weren't hungry or predatory. They were focused, clinical almost, like he was studying a puzzle nobody else could see. "Daddy, someone's here," Emma called out, her face turned toward the boy with the uncanny accuracy blind children developed. "I know, baby. Keep swinging." But Emma was already slowing down, using her feet to drag against the ground until the chains went slack. "Is he okay? He feels sad." Bruce wanted to tell her that sad street kids weren't their problem. that they needed to leave before this situation turned into something neither of them needed. But Emma had already pulled free from the swing and was walking toward the merry-go-round with her hands out in front of her, navigating by sound and memory and whatever sixth sense she'd developed in 6 years of darkness. "Emma, it's okay," she said, in that confident way she had sometimes, the tone that made Bruce wonder if blindness had sharpened something else inside her. "He's scared, but he won't hurt me." The boy still hadn't moved, hadn't run, just sat there on the freezing ground watching Bruce's daughter approach like she was the most dangerous thing he'd ever seen. Bruce followed 3 steps behind, close enough to intervene, but far enough to let Emma have her independence. She stopped 5 feet from the boy, tilted her head slightly the way she did when listening carefully. "Hi," Emma said. "I'm Emma. What's your name?" The boy's lips moved, but no sound came out. His eyes flicked from Emma to Bruce, calculating odds that didn't favor speaking. "It's okay," Emma continued, apparently unbothered by the silence. "My daddy looks scary, but he's nice. Usually." Bruce almost smiled. Almost. The boy's attention shifted back to Emma's face, and Bruce saw it happen. That clinical focus returning, studying her features with an intensity that would have gotten him thrown across the playground if Bruce didn't recognize something genuine beneath it. "Your eyes," the boy finally whispered, his voice cracked from disuse or cold or both. "They're wrong." Every muscle in Bruce's body went rigid. The knife was in his hand before conscious thought caught up to instinct, blade against his thigh where Emma couldn't see, but the boy definitely could. "Watch your mouth, kid." But the boy wasn't looking at the knife. He was standing now, moving toward Emma, with steps that were too steady for someone who should have been terrified. Bruce moved faster, putting himself between them with practiced efficiency. "Back up, now." "There's something covering her eye." The boy's voice gained strength, certainty replacing fear. "The right one. Like a film. Translucent. Almost invisible unless you know what you're looking for." Bruce's heart kicked against his ribs. "What the hell are you talking about?" "Let me see her, please." The boy held out his hands, showing empty palms that were covered in old scars and fresh cuts. "I've seen this before. In medical textbooks. At the shelter before they kicked me out. I know what it is." The world narrowed to the space between Bruce's knife hand and this homeless kid claiming to know what 17 board-certified ophthalmologists had missed. "Daddy?" Emma's voice cut through the tension. "What's he talking about?" Bruce stared at the boy, reading body language the way he'd learned to read threats in prison. No deception in those eyes, no con man's charm, just desperate sincerity and something that looked uncomfortably like hope. "If you're lying..." "I'm not." The boy's hands were shaking now, but he didn't lower them or step back. "Please, I can help her. I know I can." 3 heartbeats passed while February wind howled through the empty playground. Somewhere in the distance, a police siren wailed and died. Bruce had made thousands of decisions in his 42 years. Which fights to take, which brothers to trust, which laws to break, and which lines never to cross. But this one felt different, heavier. Like the universe was holding its breath waiting to see what he'd choose. He lowered the knife. "You've got 30 seconds, Bruce said quietly, the kind of quiet that preceded violence in men who'd learned to make their words count. "If she cries, if she even looks uncomfortable, I will end you so fast you won't have time to regret being born. Understand?" The boy nodded once, quick and sharp. Then he moved toward Emma with surprising gentleness, his bare feet silent on frozen concrete. "I'm going to touch your face," he told her. "Is that okay?" Emma's hand found her father's leg, anchoring herself. "Okay." Bruce watched the boy's hands rise toward his daughter's face with the kind of focus he usually reserved for identifying undercover cops at club parties. Every finger, every movement, every breath. The boy tilted Emma's face toward what little sunlight remained, angling her right eye into the dying light. His expression shifted through several emotions too fast to track. Recognition, certainty, something that might have been relief. "There," he breathed. "Right there." Bruce couldn't see anything, just his daughter's eye, blue and beautiful and useless as always. "I don't..." "It's almost completely transparent. Probably been there since birth." The boy's fingers moved to Emma's eyelid with a surgeon's precision that seemed impossible for someone his age. It's blocking light from reaching her retina, but it's not attached to anything structural. It's just sitting there. You're saying there's a membrane over her eye. Bruce's voice had gone flat, dangerous. Something nobody's ever mentioned in 6 years of appointments. They wouldn't see it unless they were looking for it specifically, and they'd have to know it existed in the first place. The boy's eyes met Bruce's with an intensity that stopped being childish somewhere in the last 60 seconds. I can remove it, right now. It won't hurt her. The reasonable part of Bruce's brain, the part that had kept him alive through gang wars and federal investigations, was screaming to grab Emma and leave. To get in the truck and drive away from this insane situation before something went catastrophically wrong. But the desperate father who'd spent 6 years watching his daughter navigate a world she couldn't see was already nodding. Do it. The boy's fingers moved with impossible delicacy, finding the edge of something Bruce still couldn't see. Emma went very still, her small hand tightening on her father's leg but not pulling away. Almost, the boy whispered. Almost. Then his fingers pinched together and pulled, and a thin translucent membrane came away from Emma's eye like plastic wrap peeling from glass. Emma gasped, not from pain, from shock. From the sudden explosive rush of light and color and visual information crashing into a brain that had never processed sight before. "Daddy," she whispered, her voice shaking. "Daddy, I can see." The world stopped. Bruce dropped to his knees in the dirt and dead grass, his hands finding Emma's shoulders as she stared at him with an expression of absolute wonder. Tears were streaming down her face, both eyes now, the left that had always worked and the right that suddenly did. And she was touching his face with trembling fingers like she was trying to confirm he was real. "You're crying too," Emma said, her voice breaking. "Your eyes are brown. I didn't know that. They're brown, and you have a scar right here." Her finger traced the old knife wound across his cheekbone. "And your beard is gray, and you're the most beautiful person I've ever seen." Bruce broke. 6 years of bottled fear and suppressed grief and desperate hope came pouring out in the middle of a shitty Reno playground while cold wind carried the sound of his daughter's laughter into a sky she could finally see. He pulled her against his chest and let himself sob into her hair while she kept talking, kept describing everything she was looking at for the first time. "The sky is blue. Is it always blue? And the trees are brown and green, and there's a bird up there, and oh my God, Daddy, there are so many colors. I didn't know there were this many colors." When Bruce finally looked up, the boy was backing away. Not running, not demanding payment or recognition, just quietly retreating like he'd finished a job and expected nothing in return. "Wait," Bruce managed, his voice wrecked. "Kid, wait." The boy stopped but didn't turn around. Bruce stood slowly, Emma still wrapped around his neck, unwilling to let go. He crossed the playground in 4 long strides and grabbed the boy's shoulder with the hand that wasn't supporting his daughter. The boy flinched but didn't pull away. "What's your name?" Bruce asked. The boy hesitated, like names were dangerous things to give away freely. "Daniel. Daniel Cross." "How old are you, Daniel Cross?" 12, I think. Maybe 13. I don't really know anymore." Bruce studied the kid properly now. Clothes that were 3 sizes too big and filthy beyond repair. Bare feet with cuts that had scabbed over and cracked open again. Cheekbones too sharp and eyes too old for someone who should have been worried about homework and video games. "Where are your parents?" "Dead. Mom 2 years ago. Dad never met him." "Where do you sleep?" Daniel's eyes slid away, focusing on something middle distance. "Bus stations mostly, behind the Walmart on 5th when it's really cold, couple places." "You live on the streets?" "Yeah." Emma was watching Daniel now with her newly functional right eye, studying him the way he'd studied her membrane. "You're skinny," she said with the brutal honesty of children, "and your feet are bleeding." Daniel looked down at his feet like he hadn't noticed. Maybe he hadn't. Pain became background noise when you lived in it long enough. Bruce made a decision that would have seemed insane to his younger self, the one who'd learned early that survival meant trusting nobody and keeping your circle small. But his daughter could see. This throwaway kid with dirty feet and medical knowledge he shouldn't possess had given her something 17 specialists couldn't, and Bruce Iron Hand Maddox paid his debts. "You're coming with us," he said. Daniel's head snapped up. "What?" You heard me. My clubhouse isn't far. We'll get you cleaned up, fed, and into shoes that actually fit. I don't need... Yeah, you do. Bruce's voice carried the weight of someone who knew exactly what pride looked like in the face of desperation. And more than that I owe you. So you can come willingly, or I can throw you over my shoulder and carry you. Either way, you're not sleeping behind a fucking Walmart tonight. Daniel stared at him with those two old eyes, clearly trying to determine if this was some kind of trick. Bruce didn't blame him. The world had probably taught him that good things came with hidden prices. I don't understand, Daniel finally said. You gave me my daughter's sight back. Bruce's voice went quiet, the kind of quiet that carried more weight than shouting ever could. You understand what that means? What that's worth? I just peeled off a membrane. It was everything. Bruce cut him off, his hand still on Daniel's shoulder. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to climb on the back of my bike. We're going to ride to my clubhouse. You're going to eat until you can't move and sleep in a real bed, and tomorrow we'll figure out the rest. No strings. No payment required. Just letting me return the favor to someone who helped my family when he didn't have to. But I'm nobody, Daniel whispered. Why would you? You stopped being nobody the second you gave my daughter her eyes back. Bruce's grip tightened slightly. Not painful, but firm. Anchoring. And I take care of people who take care of mine. That's not negotiable. That's just how this works. Emma was nodding enthusiastically against Bruce's shoulder. Come with us. Please? I want to look at you more. I want to see what you look like when you smile. Something in Daniel's expression cracked. Not broke. Cracked. Like the first fissure in a dam that had been holding back too much for too long. Okay, he said, his voice barely audible. Okay. Bruce turned back toward the Harley with Emma still wrapped around him, and Daniel following 3 steps behind like a ghost learning to trust gravity again. The sun was setting now, painting the Reno skyline in shades Emma had never seen before. She kept gasping and pointing at colors, at shadows, at the way light bounced off windows downtown. That's orange, she shouted. And that's purple. Daddy, is that purple? It's so pretty. Bruce helped her into her seat, then turned to Daniel. Ever been on a motorcycle? No. Hold on tight. Don't lean unless I lean. Keep your feet on the pegs. Daniel climbed on awkwardly, his bare feet finding the passenger pegs. Bruce handed him a spare helmet from the saddlebag, one he kept for Emma, but she'd outgrown months ago. This might be too big, but it'll work. The engine roared to life, that familiar Harley rumble that Bruce felt in his chest more than heard. Emma squealed with delight at the sound, seeing the chrome and metal for the first time while vibration shook through the frame. They pulled onto 4th Street as streetlights flickered on across the city. Bruce could feel Daniel's death grip on the sissy bar behind him, knuckles probably white under the dirt and scars. The kid was terrified but trying not to show it. Good. Fear meant he was smart enough to understand when something important was happening. The clubhouse sat on the eastern edge of town where industrial warehouses gave way to empty lots and buildings nobody had used since the recession. A low brick structure with no windows on the street side and a parking lot full of motorcycles that gleamed under harsh fluorescent lights. The sign above the door read, Iron Reapers MC, Reno Chapter, in letters that had faded to ghost impressions of their original red. Bruce killed the engine in his designated spot. President's privilege. 1st row, closest to the door. Emma was already scrambling down, spinning in circles to take in everything she'd been missing. There's so many motorcycles. She ran to the nearest Harley, her small hands hovering over chrome like she was afraid to touch something sacred. They're so shiny. What color is this one? Black with red flames, Bruce said. That's Reaper's bike. He'll lose his mind when I tell him you can see it. Daniel had dismounted carefully, standing next to the Harley like he wasn't sure what to do with his hands. His eyes were scanning the parking lot, the building, the exits. Calculating. Always calculating. The front door opened and 3 bikers stepped out, smoke from their cigarettes curling into cold air. Bull, Reaper, and Chains. Bruce's oldest brothers, the ones who'd been there since the beginning. They saw Emma first, started to smile, then noticed Daniel, and their expressions shifted to something harder. Boss, Bull said, his voice carrying across the parking lot. 280 pounds of muscle and suspicion under a leather cut that had seen combat in 2 different wars. Who's the kid? Bruce put his hand on Daniel's shoulder, claiming him in front of witnesses. In the outlaw world, gestures mattered more than words. "This is Daniel Cross," he said clearly. "He just gave Emma her sight back, and he's under my protection. Anyone got a problem with that?" The three bikers looked at each other, then at Emma, then back at Bruce. Chain spoke first, his voice rough from decades of cigarettes and shouting over engine noise. "The fuck you mean he gave her sight back?" Emma ran to them, practically vibrating with excitement. "I can see. Look!" She pointed at Chains. "You have a beard. It's black and gray, and you're really tall, and your eyes are blue." Reaper's cigarette fell from his mouth. Bull made a sound like he'd been gut punched. Chains dropped to one knee so fast his joints popped. "Emma, baby girl, you can really see us?" "Yes, Daniel fixed my eye. There was something covering it that the doctors never found, but he saw it, and he took it off, and now everything is so bright and beautiful, and I never want to close my eyes again." Bull was staring at Daniel now with an expression that was hard to read. "This scrawny homeless kid succeeded where 17 specialists failed?" "Watch it," Bruce said quietly. "I'm not saying it's bad, boss. I'm saying it's goddamn miraculous." The door opened again and more bikers filed out. Wrench, Snake, Mad Dog, Psycho Pete, a dozen others whose names carried stories and scars. They gathered in a rough semicircle around Emma while she explained what happened, her words tumbling over each other in a rush of joy and newly discovered color descriptions. Daniel stood slightly behind Bruce, trying to make himself small again. But Bruce could feel the kid trembling, could see him starting to shut down under the weight of too many dangerous-looking men paying too much attention. Bruce whistled sharp and loud, cutting through the noise. Everyone went quiet. "Listen up," he said, his president's voice carrying the kind of authority that didn't need volume. "This is Daniel Cross. He's 12 years old. He's been living on the streets for 2 years. He has medical knowledge he shouldn't have and eyes that see things trained doctors miss. And most importantly," he paused, making sure every man was looking at him, "he helped my daughter when he had absolutely nothing to gain from it. No payment, no reward, just did it because it was right." The parking lot had gone silent, except for distant traffic and the tick of cooling engines. "So here's the new reality. Daniel's under Iron Reaper protection. He sleeps here, eats here, and anyone who has a problem with that can take it up with me personally. He's not a prospect. He's not a hang-around. He's family, and we take care of family." Bruce felt Daniel's whole body go rigid behind him. The kid probably didn't understand what had just happened, didn't recognize being claimed by an outlaw motorcycle club as one of the rarest honors the Brotherhood could give. But the bikers understood. One by one, they stepped forward, not crowding, not threatening, just offering silent acknowledgement. Bull nodded. Chains offered a hand that Daniel shook with visible terror. Reaper crushed his cigarette under his boot and said, "Welcome home, kid." The words hit Daniel like physical blows. Bruce could see him struggling to process, to understand, to believe this wasn't some elaborate setup for cruelty. "I don't—" Daniel's voice cracked. "I'm nobody. Why would you—" Emma grabbed his hand with both of hers, her newly seen eyes bright with tears. "Because you gave me the world," she said simply. "And Daddy always says family takes care of family." Daniel looked down at the 6-year-old girl who could finally see his face, then up at the circle of scarred, dangerous men who'd just claimed him as a brother, then at Bruce, who'd made a decision that would change all their lives. "I don't know how to be family," Daniel whispered. "You'll learn," Bruce said. "Same way we all did. One day at a time, starting with getting you inside before you freeze to death in February without shoes." Chains laughed, breaking the heavy moment. "Shit, kid's tougher than half our prospects. Standing barefoot on concrete in February and not complaining. I like him already." The group moved toward the clubhouse entrance, Emma pulling Daniel along while describing everything she was seeing. Bruce hung back with Bull, who'd been his VP for 15 years and knew him better than anyone except Emma's dead mother. "You sure about this, boss?" Bull asked quietly. "Kid appears out of nowhere with knowledge he shouldn't have, fixes a problem nobody else could solve, and now you're bringing him into the clubhouse. The family? You think it's a setup?" "I think miracles don't usually come in the form of homeless 12-year-olds. Bruce watched Daniel stumble slightly as Emma dragged him through the door, watched the kid's eyes go wide at whatever he was seeing inside. "Maybe that's exactly what makes it a miracle. And if you're wrong, then I'll handle it." Bruce met Bull's eyes. "But I'm not wrong. I've been reading people since I was younger than him. That kid isn't running a con, he's just trying to survive. By memorizing medical textbooks? By whatever means necessary. Bruce started toward the door, same as we all did. Inside, the clubhouse looked like what it was. A converted warehouse where men who didn't fit in regular society had built something that mattered. Pool tables and poker tables and a bar that stretched the length of one wall. Mismatched furniture that had been acquired through various means, none of them involving furniture stores. Neon beer signs casting colored light across concrete floors. The smell of cigarette smoke, motor oil, leather, and the kind of coffee that had been sitting on a burner too long. Daniel had stopped just inside the door, frozen by the weight of too many new sensory inputs. Emma was still holding his hand, pointing at everything, describing colors he could probably see just fine, but she wanted to name anyway. That's green, and that's yellow, and those lights are blue and red and pink, and oh my God, there's so many of them. Wrench appeared with a blanket that he wrapped around Daniel's shoulders without asking permission. You're shaking, kid. Warm up. Daniel clutched the blanket like it might disappear. Like warmth was something he didn't trust to last. Psycho Pete, who'd earned his nickname in ways nobody talked about, emerged from the kitchen carrying a plate stacked with sandwiches. Eat. You look like you haven't had a real meal in weeks. Daniel stared at the food like it was a trap. Bruce recognized that look. He'd worn it himself 25 years ago when the club first took him in after his father kicked him out for the last time. Nobody's going to take it away, Bruce said quietly, moving to stand beside Daniel. Eat as much as you want. There's more where that came from. Daniel picked up a sandwich with shaking hands and took a small, careful bite. Then another. Then he was eating like someone who'd forgotten what full felt like, barely pausing to breathe between bites. Emma climbed onto a bar stool, swinging her legs and watching Daniel with her newly doubled vision. You were really hungry, huh? Daniel nodded, unable to speak around the food he was still trying to swallow. Bruce signaled Mad Dog, who disappeared down the hallway toward the back rooms. He returned carrying clothes that would probably still be too big, but at least wouldn't fall off. Jeans, a t-shirt, a hoodie that had belonged to a prospect who'd washed out last month. Bathroom's down that hall, second door on the left, Bruce told Daniel. Take a shower, get warm, put these on. Your old clothes are going in the trash because they're biohazards at this point. Daniel looked at the clothes, at the bathroom, at Bruce. Why are you doing this? Already told you, you helped my family. This is how we say thank you. But I don't deserve... That's not how this works. Bruce's voice went hard enough to cut through Daniel's spiraling. You don't get to decide what you deserve. I do. And I've decided you deserve a shower, warm clothes, food, and a place to sleep that isn't behind a fucking dumpster. So take the bathroom, clean up, and when you come back, we'll figure out the rest. Understood? Daniel's throat worked. Okay. He disappeared down the hallway, clutching the clothes and blanket. The second he was out of sight, Bull sidled up to Bruce at the bar. That kid's been hurt, he said quietly. And I don't just mean hungry and cold. There's trauma there. Old trauma. I know. You taking him in could open wounds he's been trying to keep closed, or it could give him a chance to heal for the first time in his life. Bruce accepted the beer Mad Dog slid across the bar but didn't drink it. How old was I when you pulled me off that street corner? 17? Beaten to shit by my old man and convinced I was worth less than dirt? That was different. No, it wasn't. Bruce finally looked at his VP. We were all broken kids once. Every single person in this clubhouse came from somewhere dark. We just had the luck of finding brothers who gave a shit. Now it's Daniel's turn. Bull was quiet for a long moment, his eyes on Emma, who was drawing pictures with crayons someone had produced from somewhere. You're making him family, for real. Yeah, club's going to have questions. Why this kid? Why now? Why break protocol for someone we just met? Then they can ask me. I'm still president last time I checked. Bull almost smiled. Yeah, you are. 15 minutes later, Daniel emerged from the bathroom looking like a different person. Clean skin, wet hair, clothes that were still too big but hung on him with significantly less disaster than before. His feet were still bare. Nobody had shoes small enough, but at least they were clean now. Emma ran to him immediately. You look so different. Your hair is brown, dark brown, and your eyes are... She leaned closer, studying his face. Green, sort of. Green with bits of brown. Those are called hazel, right? I think so, Daniel said quietly. They're pretty. Daniel looked like he'd never heard those words before and didn't know how to process them. Bruce gestured to a couch against the far wall, cracked leather that had seen better decades but was clean and comfortable. Sit. Rest. Nobody's going to bother you. Daniel moved to the couch with the careful steps of someone expecting the floor to collapse. He sat slowly, his body remembering softness the way someone remembers a language they used to speak. Emma climbed up beside him, still chattering about everything she could see. The other bikers gave them space, going back to pool games and poker hands and quiet conversations at the bar. But Bruce noticed how they kept glancing over, checking in, making sure the kid was okay. This was how it worked, how it had always worked. The Brotherhood didn't run on rules as much as shared understanding. When one of them brought someone in, the whole club stood behind it. Questions could come later. Right now, protection mattered more than explanations. An hour passed, then 2. Daniel stayed on the couch with Emma, answering her endless questions about colors and shapes and why things looked the way they did. Bruce watched them from the bar, nursing the same beer he'd been pretending to drink for 90 minutes. She likes him, Chains observed, settling onto the stool beside Bruce. Haven't seen her this happy since she was born and couldn't see how shitty the world actually is, Bruce finished. That's dark, boss. That's reality. Bruce set the beer down, but maybe it doesn't have to be. Not for her. Not anymore. Chains followed his gaze to the couch where Emma had fallen asleep, leaning against Daniel's shoulder. The boy was still awake, looking around the clubhouse with those 2 old eyes that missed nothing. What's his story? Chains asked. Real story, not the one he told you. Mother died 2 years ago. Father was never in the picture. He's been on streets ever since, surviving however he could. How'd he learn medical shit? Don't know yet. Haven't asked. You going to? Eventually. Bruce stood, his knees popping from too many years of riding and fighting. Right now he needs to know he's safe. Questions can wait. He crossed to the couch. Daniel's eyes tracked his movement, wary but not quite afraid. Emma's out, Bruce said quietly. I'll take her to her room. You can crash in one of the spare rooms. Chains will show you where. I could just sleep here, on the couch. I don't want to take someone's... You're not taking anything. We've got space. Bruce picked Emma up carefully, her head lolling against his shoulder. Get some rest, Daniel. Real rest. Nobody's going to hurt you here. Daniel's expression suggested he didn't entirely believe that, but he nodded anyway. Chains led him toward the hallway, while Bruce carried Emma to her room. A small space he'd converted from storage, painting the walls pink and filling it with toys she couldn't see but loved anyway. Now she could see every stuffed animal, every crayon drawing she'd created blind, every careful detail he'd added trying to make her world beautiful, even if she couldn't witness it. He laid her in bed and pulled the blankets up. She stirred slightly, mumbling something about colors before settling back into sleep. Bruce stood there for a long time, watching his daughter breathe, processing the impossible truth that she could finally see the world around her. Processing the even more impossible truth that the miracle had arrived in the form of a throwaway kid with bare feet and trauma-dark eyes. When he finally returned to the main room, most of the brothers had cleared out for the night. Just Bull remained at the bar, cleaning glasses that were already clean. Kid's in the back room, Bull said without looking up. Chain said he just sat on the bed staring at the ceiling, didn't even get under the covers. He's waiting for the other shoe to drop. Is there another shoe? Bruce thought about it, about the questions he hadn't asked, about the knowledge Daniel shouldn't have, about the timing that seemed too perfect to be coincidence. But then he thought about Emma's face when she saw him for the first time, about the way Daniel had approached her with gentleness instead of threat, about how the kid could have run after fixing her eye but stayed instead, waiting to see if his work had actually helped. No, Bruce said finally, no other shoe, just a kid who needs what we can give him. And if you're wrong, then I'll handle it. Bruce headed toward the hallway. Same as I always do. His own room was Spartan. Bed, dresser, photos of Emma at various ages, his Marine Corps dress blues hanging in a closet he never opened. He stripped down to boxers and t-shirt but didn't sleep. Instead, he sat on the edge of his bed, staring at nothing, replaying the day's events like footage from a camera he couldn't shut off. The park. The membrane. Emma seeing. Daniel's bare feet on frozen ground. The decision to bring him here. the look on the kid's face when Bruce called him family. Somewhere down the hall, Daniel Cross was probably still sitting on that bed, staring at a ceiling he could finally see properly, trying to understand what had just happened to his life. Tomorrow there would be questions, explanations, logistics about school and documentation, and all the practical nightmares that came with taking in a street kid who probably didn't legally exist in any system that mattered. But tonight Bruce's daughter could see. And the boy who'd given her that gift was sleeping under a roof instead of behind a dumpster. For now, that was enough. Bruce lay back on his bed, closed his eyes, and for the first time in 6 years, let himself hope that maybe some things could be fixed after all. And in the room 3 doors down, Daniel Cross lay in a real bed for the first time in 2 years, blanket pulled up to his chin, staring at the ceiling and waiting for the nightmare to resume. But the nightmare didn't come, just warmth, safety, the distant sound of motorcycles in the parking lot, and somewhere buried under layers of trauma and survival instinct, the smallest fragile seed of something that might eventually become trust, if it survived what was coming next. Dawn broke over Reno like a knife cutting through dirty gauze. Bruce woke to the sound of Harleys firing up in the parking lot. Early risers heading to work at the garage, the club ran as legitimate cover. He'd slept maybe 3 hours. His back ached from old injuries that never fully healed, and his mind was already running through the logistics of keeping a 12-year-old alive in a clubhouse full of outlaws. He found Emma in the kitchen, sitting at the scarred wooden table with a box of crayons spread in front of her. She was drawing furiously, her tongue poking out in concentration, trying to capture every color she'd discovered yesterday. "Morning, baby girl." Emma looked up with eyes that still made his chest tight, both of them working now, tracking his movement across the room. "Daddy, look! I drew you!" The picture showed a stick figure with brown circles for eyes and a jagged line for the scar on his face. It was terrible and perfect. "That's beautiful. I'm going to draw Daniel next. Is he awake?" "Don't know yet." Bruce poured coffee from the pot that had probably been sitting there since midnight. "Let him sleep. Kid needs it." But when he checked the back room 20 minutes later, the bed was empty. Sheets pulled tight with military precision. No sign of Daniel except the borrowed clothes folded neatly on the dresser. Bruce's hand moved instinctively to his knife, every protective instinct firing at once. Then he heard voices from the garage, low murmurs punctuated by the clank of tools on metal. He found Daniel sitting on an overturned crate, watching Wrench rebuild a carburetor with the kind of focus that bordered on hunger. The kid's bare feet were pulled up under him, arms wrapped around his knees, making himself small in a space that smelled like motor oil and old leather. Wrench glanced up when Bruce appeared in the doorway. "Morning, boss. Kid's got questions about engine timing. Smart questions." "You know engines?" Bruce asked Daniel. "I know books about engines." Daniel's voice was quiet, careful. "I used to read manuals at the library before they banned me for sleeping there, but I've never actually seen someone work on one." Wrench grunted, spinning a socket wrench with practiced efficiency. "Books are good. Hands are better. Want to learn?" Daniel's eyes went wide. "Really? Wouldn't ask if I wasn't serious." Wrench gestured to the workbench. "Wash your hands in that sink. Then come here and I'll show you what these parts actually do when they're not just diagrams on paper." Bruce watched Daniel move to the sink with cautious reverence, scrubbing his hands like he was preparing for surgery. The kid's shoulders were still tight, waiting for the moment when this generosity would be revealed as a trap or a test. "You show up early?" Bruce asked Wrench quietly. 5 a.m. Thought he was breaking in until I saw how careful he was being. Didn't touch anything, just stood there watching like he was afraid to breathe too loud. "He say anything?" "Asked if it was okay for him to be here. I told him if you said he belonged, then he belonged. End of discussion." Bruce nodded, something loosening in his chest. This was how the Brotherhood worked. Once you were claimed, you were protected. No debates, no votes. The president's word was law. He left them to their work and returned to the main room where Bull was setting up for church, the weekly club meeting where business got handled and decisions got made. Chairs arranged in a rough circle, ashtray in the center, coffee and whiskey on the side table because some conversations required both. The brothers filtered in over the next hour, Chain smoking his third cigarette before 9 a.m. Reaper nursing a hangover that made his eyes look like bullet wounds. Mad Dog, Psycho Pete, Snake, and 8 others whose faces carried stories Bruce knew by heart. They settled into their usual positions. Bull on Bruce's right as VP, Chains as Sergeant-at-Arms on his left. The room went quiet except for the scrape of chair legs and the click of lighters. "Got something to discuss," Bruce said without preamble. "The kid, Daniel Cross." "Figured," Chains said, exhaling smoke. "You brought a civilian into the clubhouse. Made him family. That shit requires conversation." "I'm listening," Mad Dog spoke up, his voice gravelly from decades of shouting over engine noise. "Not questioning your call, boss, but we need to know what we're dealing with. Kid appears out of nowhere, fixes something 17 doctors couldn't, knows medical shit he shouldn't. That raise flags for anyone else?" Several heads nodded. "Feels convenient," Snake added. "Too convenient. Like someone planted him." "Planted by who?" Bruce kept his voice level. "Who the fuck would plant a 12-year-old homeless kid in a random Reno park on the off chance I'd show up with my blind daughter?" "Someone who knew you take Emma there every week," Bull said quietly. "Someone who's been watching, waiting for opportunity." The words hung in cigarette smoke and morning light filtering through dirty windows. Bruce forced himself to consider it objectively. The possibility that Daniel was a setup, a long con designed to infiltrate the club through the one weakness Bruce couldn't armor, his daughter. "Feds?" Reaper asked. "Kid's too young," Chain said. "They use young CIs, but not that young. Too many laws about endangering minors. Rival club, then." Mad Dog crushed his cigarette in the ashtray. "Plant a kid, gain trust, learn our routes and suppliers, report back." "Which club?" Bruce challenged. "Mongrels are in Sacramento. Devil's Disciples are focused on Vegas. Nobody's been pushing our territory in months." "Doesn't mean they're not planning to." Bruce let them talk it through, watching faces, reading body language. These men had survived by being paranoid, by trusting slowly and verifying constantly. He couldn't fault them for applying that same caution to Daniel, but he also couldn't ignore what he'd seen in that park. "You want to know what I think?" Bruce said finally, cutting through the debate. "I think Daniel Cross is exactly what he appears to be. A smart kid who got dealt a shit hand and learned to survive by memorizing anything that might be useful. Medical texts, engine manuals, whatever he could find at libraries and shelters before they kicked him out." "That's optimistic as hell," Snake muttered. "That's observation." Bruce's voice went hard. "I've been reading people since before most of you could ride. That kid isn't running a game. He's terrified, waiting for us to turn on him, expecting betrayal because that's all he's ever known." "Or he's a very good actor," Bull said quietly. The words hit harder coming from his VP, the man Bruce trusted more than anyone except Emma. "You really think that?" Bull met his eyes steadily. "I think we need to be careful. I think bringing him in this fast, without vetting, without background checks, without any goddamn information beyond what he told you, that's not how we operate. That's emotional decision-making, and emotional decisions get brothers killed." Silence settled over the room like smoke over water. Bruce knew Bull was right, knew he'd broken protocol, skipped steps, made a call based on gut instinct instead of proper intelligence. Knew that if any other member had done the same thing, he'd be the first one demanding answers. "So what do you want?" Bruce asked. "Background check? Surveillance? Put a prospect on him to report back every time he takes a shit?" "I want to know who he really is," Bull said. "Where he came from. Why he has knowledge that doesn't match his story. And I want to know before we're in too deep to cut him loose if shit goes sideways." "He gave Emma her sight back." "I know. That doesn't mean he's safe." Bruce stood slowly, his chair scraping against concrete loud enough to make several brothers flinch. "Here's what's going to happen. You want background on Daniel Cross? Run it. Check every database, every missing persons report, every foster care system in Nevada. But until you find something that proves he's a threat, he stays under club protection. He sleeps here, eats here, learns engines with wrench, and stays the fuck away from any club business that matters. Understood?" The brothers exchanged glances. Bull nodded slowly. "Understood." "Chains, you're on background. Use whatever contacts you've got. I want answers by end of week." "On it, boss." "And nobody," Bruce's eyes swept the room, "treats that kid like a threat unless I say otherwise. He's scared enough without you assholes making it worse." Church broke up with the scrape of chairs and low conversations. Bull stayed behind, waiting until the room cleared before speaking. You're too close to this. I know. Emma's involved. That compromises your judgment. I know that too. Bruce turned to face his VP fully. But I'm still right about him. That kid isn't a plant or a spy or whatever paranoid scenario you're building. He's just broken, and we know how to handle broken. We also know how to handle threats. Bull's voice stayed level, but his eyes were hard. If he's playing you through Emma, if this whole thing is set up to hurt your daughter worse than blindness ever could, I will end him. Club law or not, brother or not, I will put him in the fucking ground. If he's a threat, I'll do it myself. Bruce met Bull's stare without flinching. But he's not, and you'll see that once Chains finishes digging, Bull left without another word. Bruce stood in the empty room, surrounded by chairs and ashtrays and the weight of decisions that could splinter his club if he was wrong. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him swipe accept. Yeah. Mr. Maddox? Female voice. Young, nervous. This is Casey Winters from Child Protective Services. We need to talk about Emma. Bruce's blood went cold. What about her? We received a report that she's living in an environment unsuitable for a minor. Motorcycle clubhouse. Convicted felons with access to a 6-year-old child. I'm required to investigate. Who filed the report? That's confidential. But I'll be visiting your residence today at 2 p.m. to conduct a welfare check. If you're not present, I'm authorized to remove Emma from the premises pending a court hearing. The line went dead. Bruce stood there with the phone against his ear, rage and fear mixing into something that tasted like copper. Someone had called CPS. Someone knew Emma was living at the clubhouse. Someone was making a move against his daughter. And the timing, less than 24 hours after bringing Daniel in, couldn't be coincidence. He found Bull in the parking lot, leaning against his Harley with a cigarette burning between scarred knuckles. CPS just called. They're coming at 2 to check on Emma. Someone reported us. Bull's expression went flat. Dangerous. When? Call came through 5 minutes ago. Convenient timing. That's what I'm thinking. Bull took a long drag, exhaling smoke through his nose like an angry dragon. Could be the kid. Could be someone who saw you bring the kid in. Could be coincidence. You believe in coincidence? No. Bull flicked the cigarette into gravel. What do you want to do? Handle the CPS visit, keep Emma calm, figure out who the fuck is coming at us and why. And the kid? Bruce looked toward the garage where Daniel was probably still learning carburetor mechanics, with the kind of focus that suggested this was the first safe thing he'd been allowed to do in years. Keep him away from Emma until we know for sure. Bull nodded. Smart. But it didn't feel smart. It felt like betrayal. Like confirming every fear that kid probably woke up with. That kindness was temporary, that trust was a trap, that eventually everyone turned on you. Bruce walked to the garage, his boots heavy on concrete. Daniel looked up from the workbench where he was holding a fuel line assembly like it was made of glass. Emma wants to see you, Bruce lied. She's in the kitchen drawing. Why don't you go keep her company? Daniel's face lit up, genuine joy that made Bruce's chest hurt. Really? She wants to draw me? Yeah, go on. Daniel set down the fuel line carefully and headed toward the main building with the cautious excitement of someone expecting good things to be snatched away at any second. Wrench waited until the kid was out of earshot. What's going on? CPS visit at 2. Someone reported Emma living here. Fuck. Wrench wiped grease-black hands on a rag. You think it's connected to the kid? Don't know, but until I do, he stays away from club business. He's just learning engines. I know what he's doing. Bruce's voice came out harder than intended. But if there's even a chance he's the reason CPS is sniffing around, I need to know before Emma gets caught in the crossfire. Wrench nodded slowly, understanding settling over his weathered features. You want me to watch him? Just keep him occupied. Teach him whatever you want. But if he asks questions about the club, about membership, about what we do, you shut it down, politely but firmly. Got it, boss. Bruce returned to the main building where Daniel and Emma were sitting at the kitchen table. Emma had 3 drawings spread in front of her now. Bruce, Daniel, and what appeared to be a motorcycle made of purple and orange scribbles. Daddy, look! I drew Daniel's eyes. They're hard because they keep changing colors depending on the light. Daniel was smiling, small and fragile but real. Bruce felt like a war criminal. That's great, baby girl. Listen, I need to talk to you for a minute. Grown-up stuff. Emma's face fell slightly, but she nodded, sliding off her chair. Bruce led her down the hall to her room and closed the door. Am I in trouble? She asked immediately. No. But someone called some people who need to check and make sure you're safe here. They're coming at 2 o'clock to talk to you and see your room. Why wouldn't I be safe? You're here, and Bull and Chains and everyone. I know, but sometimes people who don't understand how we live think it's dangerous, so they check, make sure everything's okay. Emma processed this with the seriousness she applied to everything important. What do I tell them? The truth. That you're happy. That you have your own room. That I take care of you and the brothers help. What about Daniel? Bruce chose his words carefully. Daniel's new. These people might have questions about him, so maybe just don't mention him unless they ask directly, okay? Why not? Because it's complicated and I don't want them to get confused about who he is and why he's here. Emma's newly functional eyes studied his face with uncomfortable clarity. You think he did something bad? No, you do. I can see it. Your face looks the same way it did when you thought that man at the park was going to hurt me. Bruce knelt down so they were eye level. I don't think Daniel's bad, but I need to make sure he's safe. For you, for the club, for everyone. And that means asking questions, being careful. Can you understand that? Emma's lower lip trembled. He gave me my eyes back. He didn't have to, but he did. And now you're treating him like he's scary. I'm treating him like someone I need to understand better. That's different. It doesn't feel different. Emma crossed her arms. It feels mean. The accusation hit harder than any punch Bruce had ever taken. His 6-year-old daughter calling him mean for protecting her, for being cautious, for doing exactly what the club had taught him to do with outsiders. I'm sorry you feel that way, he said quietly. But I'm still your father, and I'm still responsible for keeping you safe. So we're doing this my way. Understand? Emma nodded but didn't uncross her arms. Bruce kissed her forehead and left before she could see how much her words had cut. The next 3 hours crawled past like wounded animals. Bruce cleaned the clubhouse with help from brothers who understood that CPS visits required carefully managed optics. They hid anything that could be classified as drug paraphernalia, even though the club didn't deal and barely used. They locked the gun safe and made sure Emma's room looked like something from a Pinterest board instead of a converted storage space in an outlaw biker headquarters. At exactly 2 p.m., a Honda Civic pulled into the parking lot. Casey Winters emerged carrying a tablet and wearing the kind of earnest expression that suggested she'd graduated social work school less than a year ago. Bruce met her at the door. Ms. Winters? Mr. Maddox, thank you for making yourself available. Like I had a choice. Her smile was professional and didn't reach her eyes. May I come in? He stepped aside. She entered slowly, taking in the pool tables and bar and motorcycle memorabilia with the carefully neutral expression they taught in training. Her eyes lingered on the Iron Reaper's patch on the wall, the Reaper skull holding a broken chain that symbolized freedom from society's rules. Is Emma here? In her room. I'll get her. Actually, I'd like to see her room first, if that's okay. Everything was a request phrased like a question, but carrying the weight of legal authority. Bruce led her down the hall and opened Emma's door. Casey stepped inside, her tablet already recording notes. She examined the bed, the toys, the drawings on the walls, opened the closet and checked for appropriate clothing, ran her finger along surfaces, checking for dust or neglect. It's clean, she said, sounding almost disappointed. Did you expect otherwise? I expected... She stopped herself. Never mind. May I speak with Emma now? Bruce called for his daughter. Emma appeared wearing her favorite pink dress, the one she'd loved before she could see it, and loved even more now that she could. Her face was carefully neutral, absorbing Bruce's tension the way children always did. Hi, Emma. I'm Casey. I'm a social worker. Do you know what that means? Someone who checks if kids are okay. That's right. Very smart. Can you tell me about living here? Emma glanced at Bruce. He nodded permission. I live here with my daddy. He's the president of the motorcycle club. Everyone here protects us and helps take care of me. I have my own room and toys, and now I can see them because Daniel fixed my eye. Casey's fingers paused over her tablet. Daniel fixed your eye? Bruce's stomach dropped. Yeah, I was blind, but he saw something the doctors missed, and he took it off, and now I can see everything. Colors and shapes and faces and... Emma, Bruce interrupted gently, why don't you tell Miss Winters about your room? But Casey was already typing, her expression shifting from neutral to focused. Who is Daniel? A friend, Emma said before Bruce could redirect. He lives here now, too. Daddy brought him home because he was homeless, and we take care of family. How old is Daniel? 12. He's really smart. He knows about engines and medicine and... Emma, honey, can you show Ms. Winters your favorite toy? Casey looked up from her tablet, eyes sharp. Mr. Maddox, is there a 12-year-old boy living in this clubhouse? Temporarily. I'm working on more permanent arrangements. What's your relationship to him? I don't have one. He helped my daughter. I'm returning the favor. Is he a relative? No. Foster placement? No. So you have an unrelated minor living in an adult-oriented establishment without legal guardianship or state approval. She was typing rapidly now. How long has this been happening? 24 hours. And in those 24 hours, did it occur to you that housing a child in an outlaw motorcycle club without proper authorization might be problematic? Bruce felt his temper rising but forced it down. He was sleeping on the streets, behind dumpsters. I gave him a bed and food and safety. You want to file paperwork about that? Go ahead. It's not about paperwork, Mr. Maddox. It's about legal responsibility, child welfare, making sure vulnerable minors aren't being exploited or endangered. Exploited? Bruce's voice dropped to the tone that preceded violence. I gave that kid a chance when everyone else threw him away. How the fuck is that exploitation? Emma flinched at the curse. Casey's expression hardened. I'm going to need to speak with Daniel, alone. Where is he? No. Excuse me? You want to talk to him? I'm present. Non-negotiable. Casey's jaw tightened. Mr. Maddox, I have the authority to remove both children from this environment if I determine it's unsafe. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Bruce stared at her, reading the threat beneath the professional language. She had power here. Legal authority backed by courts and police and systems designed to destroy men like him who lived outside normal boundaries. Fine. But we do this in the main room where my brothers can witness, because I don't trust people who show up making threats. He found Daniel in the garage still, sitting on the floor next to a disassembled transmission, arranging parts with the focused intensity of someone trying to disappear into mechanical problems. Kid, need you inside. Daniel looked up with immediate wariness. Did I do something wrong? No, just need you to answer some questions. They walked to the main room where Casey was waiting with her tablet and her earnest concern and her power to ruin everything Bruce had built in the last day. Daniel froze when he saw her, every line of his body going defensive. Bruce recognized the reaction, same way strays froze when they thought you might kick them. Daniel? Casey's voice went soft, practiced. I'm Casey Winters. I'm a social worker. Nobody's in trouble. I just need to ask you some questions. Is that okay? Daniel's eyes found Bruce, silently asking permission. Bruce nodded. Okay, Daniel said quietly. How long have you been living here? Since yesterday. And where were you living before that? Silence. Daniel, it's okay. You can tell me. Streets mostly, bus stations, behind buildings when it was cold. Casey typed rapidly. How long were you homeless? 2 years, since my mom died. What about your father? Never met him. Other relatives? No. So you've been surviving on the streets for 2 years at age 12. Casey looked up from her tablet, her expression somewhere between horror and pity. Have you been attending school? No. Why not? Because I don't exist. No birth certificate, no social security number. My mom homeschooled me before she died, but there's no record of it anywhere. Casey's fingers stilled. You're telling me you're undocumented? I'm telling you I'm nobody. Legally, officially. I don't exist in any system that matters. The words hung in the air like gun smoke. Bruce hadn't known that detail, hadn't asked, Had just assumed Daniel had paperwork somewhere, even if it was buried in foster care bureaucracy. How did you survive 2 years without any support? Casey asked. Libraries. Shelters until they kicked me out. Stealing food sometimes. Reading whatever I could find because knowledge was the only thing nobody could take away. Is that where you learned about Emma's condition? Daniel nodded. Medical textbook I found in a free bin outside a used bookstore. Had a section on congenital eye abnormalities. Recognized the membrane when I saw her because I'd studied the diagrams. Casey turned to Bruce. And you believed him? A homeless 12-year-old claiming medical expertise? He was right, wasn't he? Bruce's voice carried an edge that made Casey step back slightly. Emma can see. First time in her life. Because this kid noticed what 17 specialists missed. Casey struggled for words. That's not how this works. You can't just take in random children because they helped your daughter. There are procedures, foster care evaluations, background checks, home studies. Those procedures would have left him on the streets. That's not your decision to make. The hell it isn't. Bruce moved closer, using his size to press the advantage. You want to take him? Put him back on the streets or in a system that's already failed him? Go ahead. But you better believe I'll fight you every step of the way. Mr. Maddox, this isn't about fighting. It's about what's best for Daniel. And what's that? Foster home that'll abuse him? Group facility that'll medicate him into compliance? Streets where he'll freeze to death next winter? Bruce's voice rose despite his best efforts. I'm giving him safety, food, brothers who'll protect him. What the fuck are you offering? Structure, education, legal protection. From who? He's been invisible for 2 years and nobody gave a shit until I brought him somewhere safe. Casey's expression shifted from professional to something harder. Safe? You call a motorcycle clubhouse safe for a vulnerable child? Safer than anywhere else he's been. She looked at Daniel, who'd been watching this exchange with the blank expression of someone used to having his fate decided by others. Daniel, do you feel safe here? The kid hesitated, clearly understanding this was a test with no right answer. I don't know yet. Has anyone here hurt you or threatened you? No. Has anyone asked you to do anything illegal or inappropriate? No. Wrench is teaching me about engines. Bruce gave me clothes and food and a bed. Everyone's been... He trailed off, searching for words. Nice. Careful. Like they're worried I'll break. And you want to stay here? Another hesitation. Longer this time. Daniel's eyes found Bruce again, reading his face for cues. I want to stay somewhere that won't disappear, he said finally. I'm tired of things disappearing. Something in Casey's expression softened, just slightly. I understand, but Mr. Maddox isn't legally authorized to care for you, and this environment, she gestured at the clubhouse around them, isn't appropriate for a minor. I'm going to have to file a report recommending Daniel be placed in emergency foster care pending further investigation. Bruce's hand curled into a fist before he could stop it. Bull stepped forward from where he'd been watching silently, putting himself between Bruce and Casey before something regrettable happened. Ma'am, Bull said, his voice carrying the careful diplomacy he'd learned in the Army before the club. What if we work with you? Get the paperwork started, do whatever evaluations you need, but let the kid stay here while it's being processed. That's not protocol. Protocol left him on the streets for 2 years, Bull interrupted. Protocol failed. We're offering a solution. Work with us. Casey looked between Bull and Bruce and Daniel, clearly calculating odds and consequences. I'll need to make some calls, consult with my supervisor, but even if I wanted to accommodate this arrangement, Mr. Maddox would need to apply for emergency foster certification, background check, home study. And this clubhouse, she gestured around again, would never pass inspection. I have a house, Bruce said, 10 minutes from here, 3 bedrooms, clean, legal. Emma lives there sometimes when she wants space from the club. Daniel could stay there. With supervision? With me. And Emma when she's there. Casey's fingers flew over her tablet. That's marginally better. But you'd still need to pass the background check. And given your record... I know my record, Bruce said quietly. Assault, possession, resisting arrest, all from 10 years ago, before Emma, before I got my shit together. That doesn't disappear from background checks. It should count for something that I haven't been arrested since. Casey studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Finally, she sighed. I'll make the calls. Talk to my supervisor. See if there's any flexibility here. But I'm not making any promises. And if I find out either child is in danger, any danger at all, I will remove them immediately. Understood? Understood. She gathered her tablet and headed toward the door. Bruce followed, Emma appearing from the hallway where she'd been listening. Miss Winters? Emma's voice stopped Casey at the threshold. Please don't take Daniel away. He's the only person who ever saw me. Really saw me. He deserves people who see him too. Casey's expression cracked slightly. She nodded once, didn't trust herself to speak, and walked to her Honda without looking back. The second her car pulled away, Bull turned on Bruce. That's who called CPS. What? Think about it. We bring Daniel in. Less than 24 hours later, CPS shows up knowing he's here. Knowing about Emma living in the clubhouse. Casey said she got a report. Someone told her exactly where to look and what to find. Bruce's mind raced through possibilities. You're saying Daniel called them? Or someone who's been watching him? Someone who wanted him inside our operation? That's paranoid. That's survival. Bull's voice went hard. Wake up, boss. This whole thing stinks. Miracle Kid appears with medical knowledge he shouldn't have, fixes your daughter, gets brought into the club, and immediately CPS comes calling with information they couldn't have unless someone fed it to them. Daniel's been here the whole time. When would he have made the call? Kids have phones. Could have texted someone while you thought he was sleeping. Bruce wanted to argue, wanted to defend the kid who'd given Emma her sight back, but Bull's logic was sound and the timing was impossible to ignore. Chains, Bruce called. Where are we on background? Chains appeared from the back office, his expression grim. That's what I was coming to tell you. Daniel Cross doesn't exist. No birth certificate, no school records, no medical records, no documentation anywhere. It's like he appeared out of nowhere 2 years ago. He said his mom homeschooled him. Then where's her record? Where's the death certificate? Where's anything that proves this kid is who he says he is? Chains lit a cigarette with shaking hands. I've been running searches for 3 hours. Cross is a common name, but even common names leave traces. This kid has nothing. Zero. Like he was invented yesterday. The clubhouse had gone silent. Every brother watching Bruce process information that pointed toward one conclusion. Daniel Cross was either exactly what he claimed, a ghost who'd slipped through every bureaucratic crack, or he was something else entirely. Where is he now? Bruce asked quietly. Garage, Wrench said, still working on that transmission. Bruce walked outside, the cold February air hitting his face like a slap. He found Daniel exactly where Wrench said, sitting cross-legged on concrete, arranging gears in sequence. The kid looked up when Bruce's shadow fell across him. That lady's gonna take me away, isn't she? Bruce crouched down, studying Daniel's face for signs of deception, fear, guilt, anything that would confirm the suspicions building in his head. All he saw was resignation. Maybe, Bruce said honestly. Depends on what her supervisor says. Depends on whether I pass their background check. You don't have to do that. I can just go. Find another place. Back to the streets? It's where I belong anyway. That's bullshit. Daniel's hand stilled on the gears. Is it? I'm nobody. No papers, no family, no proof I even exist. Maybe it's better if I just disappear before I cause more problems. Did you call CPS? The question landed like a punch. Daniel's head snapped up, eyes wide. What? No, why would I? Someone did. Someone told them exactly where to find you and Emma, less than a day after I brought you here. You think I... Daniel's voice cracked. You think I would risk this? Risk the first safe place I've had in 2 years? Why would I do that? I don't know. You tell me. Daniel stood slowly, every line of his body vibrating with hurt and anger. I wouldn't. I didn't. I don't even have a phone. How would I call anyone? You could have borrowed one. From who? The bikers who are all watching me like I might explode? The social worker who just showed up out of nowhere? Daniel's hands clenched into fists. I thought you believed me. I thought when you said I was family, you meant it. Family requires trust. And right now I don't know if I can trust you. The words came out harsher than Bruce intended. Daniel flinched like he'd been struck. Then I guess I should leave. He started walking toward the parking lot. No destination, no plan, just movement away from pain. Bruce caught his arm. Where are you going? Does it matter? Daniel tried to pull free, but Bruce held firm. You don't trust me. Your club doesn't trust me. That social worker's going to drag me into foster care anyway. Why delay the inevitable? Because running makes you look guilty. Staying makes me feel like a prisoner. They stood there in the cold parking lot, locked in a stalemate that felt like it might break both of them. Bruce studied this kid who'd appeared out of nowhere and saved his daughter, and might be exactly what he claimed, or might be the most elaborate trap ever set for the Iron Reapers. I need answers, Bruce said finally. Real answers. About who you are, where you came from, how you know things you shouldn't know. I told you everything. You told me a story with no proof, no documentation, nothing that backs up a single word. Because I don't have proof. I told you that. I exist in the spaces between paperwork and systems and all the shit that normal people take for granted. Daniel's voice had risen to a shout. Brothers were appearing in the garage doorway, hands moving toward weapons they didn't need yet, but might. Bruce made a decision. You stay in the clubhouse until we sort this out. No garage. No wandering. You sit in the main room where someone can always see you, and you answer every question we ask. Honestly, completely. No evasion. You're treating me like a criminal. I'm treating you like an unknown variable that could destroy everything I've built. Bruce's voice gentled slightly. If you're innocent, you'll be cleared. If you're not, then what? You'll kill me? The question hung between them, brutal in its simplicity. I'll do what needs to be done to protect my family. Daniel stared at him with those hazel eyes that had seen too much too young. I am your family. You said so, in front of everyone. Or was that just another lie adults tell to make themselves feel better? Before Bruce could respond, Emma's scream split the air. Both of them ran, Bruce reaching the clubhouse door 3 strides ahead of Daniel. Inside, Emma stood in the center of the main room, pointing at something on the pool table with a shaking hand. A dead rat. Not just dead, mutilated, cut open, arranged deliberately with its organs displayed like a message, and beneath it, written in blood on green felt, the boy belongs to us. Bull had his gun drawn. Chains was checking windows. Reaper was pulling Emma away from the table while she sobbed against his chest. Bruce felt Daniel arrive at his shoulder, heard the kid's sharp intake of breath. What the fuck is that? Bull demanded. A message, Bruce said, his voice deadly calm. Someone's making a move. Who? Bruce looked at Daniel, saw the kid's face go white as he stared at the mutilated rat. Daniel, you know who did this? Daniel nodded slowly, his whole body shaking. They found me. Who found you? Daniel's voice came out as barely a whisper, carrying weight that made every man in the room go silent. The people I ran from 2 years ago. The people who killed my mother. And with those words, everything changed. Because this wasn't about CPS or background checks or trust issues anymore. This was about survival. And the war that had just arrived at the Iron Reaper's door. The dead rat's organs glistened under fluorescent light like a grotesque art installation. Blood had soaked into green felt, spreading in patterns that looked almost deliberate. The message beneath remained stark and impossible to misinterpret. The boy belongs to us. Bruce's hand moved to the gun at his waist, muscle memory overriding conscious thought. Around him, brothers were doing the same, checking magazines, scanning windows, establishing fields of fire without needing verbal commands. 20 years of living outside the law had trained them for moments like this. Emma's sobs had quieted to hitching breaths against Reaper's chest. She'd seen the rat, seen the blood, seen proof that the safety Bruce promised was thinner than he'd believed. Daniel stood frozen near the pool table, staring at the mutilated animal with an expression Bruce recognized from his own reflection during the worst years. The face of someone watching their past catch up despite running as hard and far as possible. Talk, Bruce said quietly, the kind of quiet that preceded violence. Now. Everything. Who they are. What they want. Why they killed your mother. Daniel's throat worked, but no sound came out. His hands were shaking so badly he had to clasp them together to stop the tremors. Bull stepped closer, gun still drawn, aimed at the floor but ready. Kid asked you a question. We're all real interested in the answer. I can't... Daniel's voice cracked. If I tell you, they'll kill everyone here. Everyone. Like they killed... Your mother, Bruce finished. Yeah, you mentioned that. What you didn't mention was someone dangerous enough to track you for 2 years and leave gutted rats as calling cards. I didn't think they'd find me. Daniel's eyes were wet now, tears cutting tracks through the grime and fear on his face. I was so careful. Never stayed anywhere long. Never used my real name, never left traces. Except you did. Chains moved around the pool table, studying the rat from different angles. This didn't happen randomly. Someone watched you enter this clubhouse. Someone knew exactly where to leave a message we'd find. Someone's been surveilling us since you arrived. Bruce's mind raced through the implications. Unknown hostiles had penetrated their security, had access to the clubhouse, had been close enough to Emma to leave a threat without being detected. Every protective instinct screamed that he should throw Daniel out immediately, cut ties before whatever war the kid was running from consumed his club. But Emma's words from earlier echoed in his head. He's the only person who ever saw me. He deserves people who see him too. Who are they? Bruce asked again, forcing his voice to stay level. Daniel looked at the floor, at the ceiling, anywhere except the circle of dangerous men surrounding him. When he finally spoke, the words came out barely above a whisper. Covenant Medical Research Group. They run private hospitals and research facilities across 7 states. On paper, they're legitimate. Save lives, cure diseases, pioneer breakthrough treatments. He paused, his jaw clenching. In reality, they're a human experimentation network. They buy children from desperate parents, kidnap runaways off the streets, disappear foster kids nobody's looking for, and they use them as test subjects for experimental procedures that would never pass FDA approval. The clubhouse had gone silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights and Emma's occasional sniffles. Bullshit, Snake said. That's conspiracy theory crap. Medical research groups don't kidnap kids. The legitimate ones don't. Daniel's voice gained strength, certainty replacing fear. But Covenant isn't legitimate. They're a front, run by doctors who lost their licenses, researchers who got blackballed from universities, surgeons who perform procedures so unethical they can't work in regular hospitals anymore. And they make billions selling breakthrough treatments developed through experiments that would get them executed if anyone knew what they were really doing. Bruce studied the kid's face, reading micro-expressions and body language. No signs of deception, just raw, traumatized truth spilling out after being contained too long. Your mother, Bruce said. She was part of this? She was a nurse, entry level. Thought she was helping sick children. Daniel's hands unclenched, revealing fingernail marks in his palms where he'd been gripping too hard. Then she saw what was happening in the research wings, the locked rooms, the kids who went in healthy and came out damaged or didn't come out at all. She tried to report it, contact authorities, get someone to investigate. Let me guess, Bull said flatly. Nobody believed her. Nobody even listened. Covenant has lawyers, politicians, judges on payroll. Anyone who threatens them gets discredited, destroyed, or disappeared. My mom tried for 6 months to expose them. Then one night men came to our apartment, told her to stop asking questions. When she refused, his voice broke. They made me watch. Wanted me to understand what happened to people who caused problems. Emma made a small, wounded sound. Reaper's arms tightened around her protectively. How'd you escape? Chains asked. I didn't escape. They let me go. Said I was too young to be useful and not worth the paperwork. Figured I'd die on the streets before I could cause trouble. Daniel's laugh was bitter, broken. They were almost right. Would have frozen to death that first winter if I hadn't learned to survive in library stacks and bus station bathrooms. Bruce forced himself to think tactically instead of emotionally. Why come after you now? You've been invisible for 2 years. What changed? Emma. Daniel looked at Bruce with eyes that carried guilt alongside fear. I fixed her eye. That procedure, identifying and removing congenital membranes, that's advanced ophthalmology, way beyond what a street kid should know. Someone must have seen it, recognized the technique, realized one of their test subjects was still alive and applying knowledge we shouldn't have. The pieces clicked together with terrible clarity. Daniel hadn't just memorized medical textbooks. He'd been subjected to accelerated learning protocols, experimental education methods designed to create child prodigies by forcing neurological development beyond natural limits. Jesus Christ, Bull breathed. They didn't just experiment on your body. They experimented on your brain, cognitive enhancement trials, memory retention protocols. accelerated learning through pharmaceutical intervention, and direct neural stimulation. Daniel recited it like a shopping list, clinical detachment protecting him from the horror. I was 6 when they started. By 8, I could read medical journals and understand complex surgical procedures. By 10, I'd assisted in operations that would have taken normal doctors years of training to perform. "Why you?" Bruce asked. "High IQ, photographic memory, neurological markers that suggested enhanced plasticity." Daniel's voice went flat. "And because my mom worked there. Easy access to a test subject, convenient." Wrench had appeared in the doorway, his weathered face carved from stone. "They turned a 6-year-old into a medical prodigy through forced brain modification. They turned me into property," Daniel corrected. "An asset, something valuable they owned, and now they want their asset back." Bruce looked at the mutilated rat, the blood message, the implicit threat. "How many people are we talking about?" Covenant employs hundreds across multiple facilities, but the enforcement division, the ones who handle problems, maybe 20 operatives, ex-military, private security, people comfortable with wet work. 20 operators against a motorcycle club. Bull's voice carried grim calculation. "Those are manageable odds if we see them coming." "You won't see them coming." Daniel's eyes were haunted. "They don't operate like criminals. They operate like surgeons, precise, clinical. They'll study you for weeks, learn your patterns, identify vulnerabilities. Then they'll strike when you're most exposed, and it'll be over before you realize what's happening." Emma pulled away from Reaper, her newly functional eyes red from crying. "Are they going to hurt us?" "No," Bruce said immediately, moving to kneel beside her. "Nobody's going to hurt you, baby girl. I promise." "You can't promise that." Daniel's voice cut through the false comfort. "That's why I should leave, right now, before they come for me here and Emma gets caught in the crossfire." "Nobody's leaving." Bruce stood, his decision made. "We deal with this. Together." "You don't understand what you're up against." "I understand perfectly." Bruce's voice went hard. "Unknown hostiles with resources and training coming after someone under my protection. That's a threat. We handle threats." Bull stepped closer, lowering his voice so only Bruce could hear. "Boss, we need to think about this. 20 trained operators against our club? That's a war we're not equipped to fight. Then we get equipped. With what? We run guns and do security work? We're not a paramilitary organization. We're Iron Reapers." Bruce's eyes swept the room, making contact with each brother. "We've survived gang wars, federal raids, and every attempt to shut us down for 20 years. We'll survive this too." Mad Dog spoke up from near the bar, his gravelly voice carrying skepticism. "Surviving gang wars is different than fighting a corporate hit squad. Those guys have training, equipment, and unlimited funding. We have motorcycles and attitude." "We have loyalty," Bruce corrected. "We have brothers who'd die before letting one of our own get taken. That counts for more than training." "Does it count for more than Emma's safety?" Bull's question landed like a gut punch. "Because if we go to war with these people, she's in the blast radius. You willing to risk your daughter's life for a kid we met yesterday?" The clubhouse went silent. Every man watching Bruce process the impossible choice: protect Daniel or protect Emma. Keep his word to a traumatized child or prioritize his daughter's safety above all else. Emma made the decision for him. "Daniel stays." Her voice was small but absolute. "He gave me my eyes. We don't give him back to the people who hurt him." "Baby girl, this isn't—" "Yes, it is." Emma's face was set with the stubborn determination she'd inherited from her father. "You told me the club takes care of family, Daniel's family, so we take care of him. That's how this works, right?" Bruce looked at his 6-year-old daughter, teaching him lessons about honor he'd supposedly mastered decades ago. Looked at Daniel, standing there, expecting betrayal because betrayal was all he'd ever known. Looked at his brothers, waiting for orders that would determine whether they were a real brotherhood or just another organization that abandoned people when things got difficult. "The kid stays," Bruce said. "Anyone got a problem with that? The door's right there." Nobody moved. Bull sighed heavily, holstering his weapon. "Then we need a plan. Real plan. Not just blind loyalty and hope." "Agreed." Bruce turned to Chains. "Lock down the clubhouse. Nobody in or out without clearance. Set up rotating watch schedules. 2-man teams, 4-hour shifts. I want eyes on every entrance, every window, every possible breach point. Chains nodded, already mentally organizing assignments. Wrench, Mad Dog. Inventory our weapons. Everything we've got. Rifles, handguns, ammunition counts. I need to know our capability. On it? Snake, reach out to the mongrels in Sacramento, the Devil's Disciples in Vegas, every allied club within 200 miles. Let them know we might need support. What's the story? Tell them we're being targeted by hostile actors with military training. Don't mention Daniel or Covenant Medical, just that we need backup if things escalate. Snake disappeared toward the office to make calls. Bruce turned to Psycho Pete, whose nickname came from his talent for psychological warfare during club conflicts. Pete, I need you to dig into Covenant Medical Research Group. Use every contact you've got. Dark web forums, hacktivist networks, anyone who might have information on corporate Black Ops divisions. I want to know their structure, their operatives, their standard protocols. That's deep background work. Could take days. Then you better start now. Pete headed for the computer setup in the back room. Bruce was left with Bull, Reaper, and Daniel in the main area. Emma had climbed onto a bar stool, watching everything with the intense focus of a child trying to understand adult danger. What about CPS? Reaper asked. That social worker's going to come back. Maybe with cops. We can't fight Covenant and the legal system simultaneously. One problem at a time. Bruce looked at Daniel. You said Covenant has politicians and judges on payroll. How high does the corruption go? I don't know specifically. My mom mentioned names, but I was 10. Didn't understand the significance. Daniel's brow furrowed with concentration. I remember her saying something about Nevada state senators, federal district court judges, maybe even someone at the FBI field office in Las Vegas. So we can't trust law enforcement, Bull summarized. We couldn't trust them anyway, Bruce said. We're an outlaw club. Police aren't our friends on good days. With Covenant pulling strings, they'd be actively hostile. The front door opened. Everyone's hand moved toward weapons until they saw it was just Chains returning from setting the perimeter watch. Outside's locked down. Got prospects on the roof with binoculars. Anyone approaches within 100 yards will know. Good. What about... Thunder cracked overhead, followed immediately by rain hammering the metal roof like automatic gunfire. The storm had been building all afternoon, dark clouds rolling in from the mountains with the promise of violence. Perfect cover for an assault. Bruce moved to the window, scanning the parking lot through sheets of rain. Motorcycles gleamed wetly under security lights. Nothing moved except water and shadows. But his instincts, honed through 2 decades of surviving in a world where paranoia kept you breathing, screamed that they were being watched. Lights off, he ordered. Chains killed the main switches. The clubhouse plunged into darkness, broken only by emergency exit signs and the glow from computer screens in the back office. Everyone away from windows, center of the building, now. Brothers moved with practiced efficiency, herding Emma and Daniel toward the interior wall furthest from any external breach point. Bull had his phone out, texting something rapid fire. What are you doing? Bruce asked. Calling in the cavalry. If Covenant's making a move tonight, we need every able body here. Within 15 minutes, the parking lot was filling with motorcycles. Brothers who'd been home with families. Prospects eager to prove themselves. Even retired members who'd hung up their cuts but still answered when the club called. By the time the rain had been falling for an hour, Bruce had 37 armed men inside the clubhouse and surrounding buildings. Not enough to fight off a professional military force, but enough to make any assault costly. Daniel sat on the floor with his back against the interior wall, knees pulled to his chest, watching the organized chaos with wide eyes. Emma had curled up beside him, her small hand gripping his arm like an anchor. You've done this before, Daniel observed quietly, prepared for an attack. 3 times, Bruce confirmed, settling beside them with his back against the same wall. Gang war in 09, federal raid in 12, mongrel incursion in 15. We survived all 3. Those were criminals and cops. This is different. How? Daniel looked at him with those 2 old eyes. Because Covenant doesn't care about laws or territory or respect. They care about assets and losses. I'm an asset that represents millions of dollars in research and development. They'll burn this entire building to the ground if that's what it takes to recover me. Then we make sure they can't reach you. You don't understand. Daniel's voice rose, desperation bleeding through. They don't think like normal people. They think like scientists solving problems. You're a problem. Emma's a problem. Everyone here is a problem. And scientists don't negotiate with problems. They eliminate them. Emma stirred against his arm. You're scared. Of course I'm scared. These people killed my mother. They'll kill everyone here without hesitation. Then why'd you help me? Emma's question was simple, direct. In the park. If you knew they might find you, why did you fix my eye? Daniel was quiet for a long moment, rain hammering overhead and brothers moving in darkness around them. Because I needed to know if I was still human, if all their experiments and enhancements and modifications left anything good inside me. Helping you was proof I wasn't just the weapon they tried to create. You're not a weapon, Emma said with absolute certainty. You're my friend. Something in Daniel's expression cracked. Bruce watched the kid fight tears, fight the vulnerability that hurt worse than any physical damage. Thunder boomed again, closer this time. The lights flickered, once, twice, then died completely. Emergency generator kicked in 3 seconds later, bathing everything in red emergency lighting that made the clubhouse look like a war zone. Bull appeared out of the crimson darkness. Boss, we got a problem. What kind? Power's out for 6 blocks. Not a storm outage. Too precise. Someone cut the main lines. Bruce was on his feet immediately. Emma scooped into his arms. Everyone to defensive positions. This is it. The clubhouse transformed. Brothers who'd been relaxed 30 seconds ago became a coordinated fighting unit. Windows were reinforced with furniture, firing positions established, weapons loaded and ready. Psycho Pete burst from the back office, laptop in hand. Boss, you need to see this. He showed Bruce a screen filled with satellite imagery and building schematics. Just pulled this from a hacker forum. It's the Nevada branch of Covenant Medical. Location, security protocols, everything. Why do we care? Because Pete zoomed in on a section labeled Enforcement Division. Their hit squad left the facility 45 minutes ago, 8 vehicles, military-grade equipment, and their GPS signature shows them heading straight toward this address. Bruce's blood turned to ice. ETA? 15 minutes, maybe less. Bull was already barking orders, repositioning brothers to cover likely assault vectors. Chains distributed additional ammunition. Mad Dog checked the security cameras, confirming what they already knew. They were in a kill box with a professional force incoming. We need to evacuate, Reaper said. Get Emma and Daniel out through the back. Let the rest of us hold here. They'll have the perimeter covered, Daniel said, his voice hollow. Covenant doesn't leave escape routes. They'll have spotters on every exit, teams ready to intercept anyone who runs. Then we fight. Bruce set Emma down, looking into her eyes. Baby girl, I need you to do exactly what I say. Bull's going to take you to the safe room downstairs. It's concrete on all sides, reinforced door, separate air supply. You stay there no matter what you hear. Understand? Emma's lower lip trembled. What about you? I'll be upstairs making sure nobody gets to that door. And Daniel? Bruce looked at the kid who'd started this entire nightmare by being kind when he didn't have to be. He goes with you. Safest place in the building. No. Daniel stood, his expression hardening into something that looked almost adult. They're coming for me. If I hide in the safe room, they'll tear this place apart looking. People will die. Your brothers will die. Emma could die. That's not your decision. Yes, it is. Daniel's voice carried a finality that stopped Bruce's protest. I've been running for 2 years, hiding, trying to disappear, and all it did was delay the inevitable. They found me anyway. Now I have a choice. Keep running and watch everyone around me get hurt, or face them myself. You're 12 years old. I'm a cognitive enhancement prototype worth $10 million in research data. Daniel's laugh was bitter. That's how they see me. Not a kid. An investment. And investments don't get destroyed. They get recovered. So if I give myself up, maybe they'll leave you alone. Absolutely not. Bruce grabbed Daniel's shoulder. You are not trading yourself to save us. That's not how this works. Then how does it work? You said the club protects family. I'm family, so I protect family back. That's the code, right? Emma was crying now, silent tears streaming down her face as she watched Daniel prepare to sacrifice himself. Bull's phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression going grim. They're 3 minutes out, multiple vehicles approaching from different directions. Professional dispersal pattern. Positions! Bruce roared. Brothers scattered to their assigned locations, weapons ready, waiting for the storm to break. Daniel pulled away from Bruce's grip, moving toward the front doors. Kid, don't. If I go out there, meet them outside, maybe they'll take me and leave. Maybe this ends without Emma watching people die. Bruce moved to block the door. Over my dead body. That's what I'm trying to prevent. Daniel's eyes were wet, but his voice was steady. You gave me hope. A place to belong. The first real kindness I've had in 2 years. Let me give something back. Let me save you the way you tried to save me. Thunder crashed, rain pounded, and through it all, Bruce heard the distant growl of engines. Not motorcycles, but tactical vehicles designed for rapid insertion and overwhelming force. 30 seconds. Emma ran to Daniel, wrapping her arms around his waist. Don't go, please don't go. I just got to see you. I don't want them to take you away. Daniel hugged her back, his face buried in her hair. You gave me something too. You reminded me that good things still exist, that people can be kind without wanting something. Remember that, okay? Even if bad things happen, remember there's still good. 20 seconds. Headlights swept across the windows. Multiple vehicles screeching to stops in the parking lot. Doors opening. Tactical boots on wet pavement. Bruce made a decision that would haunt him forever or define him as a man worth following. Nobody touches that door. His voice carried absolute authority. Daniel stays. We fight. And when this is over, Covenant Medical learns that you don't threaten Iron Reapers without pain and blood. The brothers roared approval. Weapons cocked. Safeties clicked off. The clubhouse became a fortress manned by warriors who'd chosen Brotherhood over safety long ago. Daniel stared at Bruce with an expression of disbelief and desperate hope. You're going to war for me. We're going to war for family. Bruce's hand found the kid's shoulder again. You said you needed proof you were still human. Here's your proof. Humans are worth fighting for. Now get to the safe room with Emma and let us handle this. A loudspeaker crackled outside, amplified voice cutting through rain and thunder. Bruce Maddox, we know you have the Covenant property. Return asset designation, cross Daniel, and this ends without bloodshed. You have 60 seconds to comply. Bull appeared at Bruce's side. Asset designation. They don't even call him human. That's because they don't see him that way. Bruce's hand moved to his gun. Time to teach them what happens when you dehumanize the wrong kid in front of the wrong people. Boss. Chains called from the window. You need to see this. Bruce crossed to the window, staying low, and looked out into the rain-soaked parking lot. 8 black SUVs formed a semicircle around the clubhouse. 30 operators in tactical gear, night vision, assault rifles. Professional spacing, coordinated movement, every angle covered. But that wasn't what made Bruce's blood freeze. In the center of the formation stood a woman in a white coat, early 50s, gray hair pulled back severely, tablet in one hand. Behind her, a man in an expensive suit held an umbrella, keeping her dry while operators surrounded them both. The woman raised a megaphone. Mr. Maddox, I'm Dr. Sarah Vance, Director of Covenant Medical Research Division. I've been chasing Asset Cross Daniel for 2 years. He represents proprietary research worth more than your entire club's net worth. Return him voluntarily, and I'll ensure your family remains unharmed. Her voice carried clinical detachment. She could have been negotiating a car lease or discussing the weather. Daniel appeared at the window, his face going white. That's her. The one who ordered my mother killed. The one who ran the experiments. Bruce studied the woman who'd turned a child into property and felt rage settle into his bones like old friends. 30 seconds, the doctor called. Then we breach. And I'm afraid breaching protocols don't account for civilian casualties. Emma was beside them now, having refused to go to the safe room without her father. She looked at the tactical team, at the woman in white, at Daniel's terrified face. Then she did something that changed everything. She opened the front door and walked outside into the rain. Emma, no! Bruce lunged for her, but she was already past him, small feet splashing through puddles, heading straight toward the wall of armed operators who could kill her before he took 3 steps. Dr. Vance raised one hand. The operators held fire, confused by a 6-year-old girl approaching like she owned the night. Emma stopped 10 feet from the doctor, rain soaking her pink dress, and pointed one small finger at the woman's face. "You hurt Daniel. You killed his mom. You're a bad person." Dr. Vance's expression didn't change. "Child, this doesn't concern you. Return to your father before—" "He's my friend. He gave me my eyes back. And you want to take him away and hurt him more." Emma's voice rose, carrying across the parking lot. "That's mean. That's really, really mean. And my daddy says we don't let mean people win." The doctor gestured to an operator. "Remove the child." The operator stepped forward. Bruce raised his gun, knowing he'd never make the shot before they grabbed Emma, knowing this was about to escalate into the bloodbath nobody wanted. Then Daniel walked through the door. "Don't touch her." His voice cut through rain and tension. "I'll go with you, voluntarily. Just don't hurt Emma or anyone here." Dr. Vance's face lit up with something approaching pleasure. "Asset Cross Daniel. How kind of you to join us. Your compliance is noted." "Daniel, get back inside." Bruce had his gun trained on the nearest operator, knowing it was suicide but unable to watch this happen. Daniel turned to face him, rain streaming down his face, mixing with tears. "Thank you for trying. Thank you for making me feel human again, but I can't let you die for me. I'm not worth it." "Yes, you are," Emma screamed. "You're worth everything." Daniel smiled at her, sad and broken, but real. "You're wrong, Emma, but thank you for believing it." He started walking toward Dr. Vance. The operators parted to let him through, their weapons never wavering from the clubhouse where 37 bikers stood helpless to stop this. Bruce's finger tightened on the trigger. One shot. He could drop the doctor, start a war that would end with everyone dead, but at least Daniel wouldn't go back to that hell. Bull's hand covered his, gentle but firm. "Boss, not like this." "They're taking him." "I know, but Emma's out there. You start shooting, she dies first." The truth of it paralyzed Bruce, his daughter or Daniel. The impossible choice made real. Daniel reached Dr. Vance. She produced a syringe from her coat pocket, jabbing it into his neck with practiced efficiency. His legs buckled. Operators caught him before he hit the ground. "What did you do to him?" Emma ran toward them, but an operator grabbed her, holding her back easily despite her kicks and screams. "Mild sedative," Dr. Vance said clinically. "He'll wake in several hours, safely return to our facility, where he can continue contributing to medical advancement." "You're going to hurt him again." Emma fought harder, desperation giving her strength that still wasn't enough. Dr. Vance looked at the struggling child with the kind of interest scientists showed lab specimens. "Interesting. Asset Cross Daniel performed an unauthorized procedure on you. Membrane removal, I assume, given the reaction patterns. That's advanced work. Beyond his documented training." Her eyes narrowed with calculation. "What's your name, child?" "Let her go," Bruce roared, stepping through the door with his gun raised, 20 weapons immediately trained on his chest. Dr. Vance ignored him, focusing on Emma. "Your visual acuity improvement suggests natural ability in Asset Cross Daniel we hadn't fully developed. That's valuable data. Perhaps you should come with us as well. Allow us to study the procedure's success rate." Everything stopped. The rain. The thunder. Bruce's heartbeat. Dr. Vance wanted Emma, not just Daniel, both of them. Bull's voice came from behind Bruce, deadly quiet. "Boss, what do you want us to do?" Bruce looked at his daughter being held by a tactical operator, at Daniel unconscious in another operator's arms, at the woman who saw children as assets and experiments as acceptable losses. He thought about the code he'd lived by for 20 years. About protecting family, about standing against anyone who threatened what mattered. He thought about Emma's face when she saw colors for the first time. He thought about Daniel's desperate hope when Bruce called him family, and he made a choice that would define him forever. "War," Bruce said simply. "We choose war." Then he pulled the trigger. The bullet took the operator holding Emma through the shoulder. Precise shot, non-lethal, calculated to drop him without killing. The man went down. Emma broke free, running toward the clubhouse as chaos erupted. 37 Iron Reapers opened fire. The night exploded into muzzle flashes and screaming metal, and the kind of violence that made headlines and destroyed lives. Covenant operators returned fire with professional precision. Bullets punched through clubhouse windows. Motorcycles exploded as rounds found gas tanks. Bruce grabbed Emma as she reached the door, pulling her inside as the wall beside his head erupted in splinters. Bull was dragging Daniel's unconscious body away from the firefight, having somehow crossed the killing zone and grabbed the kid during the initial chaos. Dr. Vance was screaming orders, her clinical detachment shattered by the realization that these weren't civilians who'd fold under pressure. They were outlaws who'd chosen death over submission. Operators were advancing on the building when the first Molotov cocktail sailed through the air, Psycho Pete's specialty. It shattered against an SUV's windshield, turning the vehicle into a rolling fireball. More bottles followed. The parking lot became an inferno of burning vehicles and tactical retreat as Covenant forces fell back to regroup. Bruce counted bodies in the flickering firelight. 3 operators down, 2 brothers injured but still fighting, Emma safe. Daniel recovered. They'd won the first engagement, but Dr. Vance was already on her radio, calling for reinforcements that would turn this from a skirmish into a siege. Bull appeared beside Bruce, breathing hard, blood streaming from a cut above his eye. We can't hold against a sustained assault. I know. We need to run, now, while we have a window. I know that too. Bruce looked at Daniel's unconscious form on the floor, at Emma crying beside him, at his brothers reloading weapons for the next wave. Chains appeared from the back office. Boss, I got us a ride. Prospect's got a cargo van 3 blocks over, engine running, ready to move. How many can it hold? 10, maybe 12 if we pack tight. Not enough for everyone, not even close. Bull understood immediately. You're leaving us behind. No. Bruce's voice cracked. You're staying to make it look like we're still here, buying time. When Covenant realizes we've run, you scatter, disappear into safe houses. We'll regroup once this blows over. If it blows over, Bull gripped his shoulder, they'll come after you hard, boss. Hunt you like animals. Then I better run like my life depends on it. Bruce looked at his VP, his best friend, the man who'd stood beside him through every nightmare the club had survived. Take care of the brothers. Keep them safe. You take care of that girl and that kid. They're worth whatever happens next. Bruce gathered Emma and hoisted Daniel over his shoulder in a fireman's carry. The kid weighed almost nothing, all bones and trauma and desperate hope. Reaper, Wrench, Chains, and Mad Dog formed up around them, the core team, the ones Bruce trusted with Emma's life. They slipped out the back exit into the rain while gunfire resumed out front. Bull and the remaining brothers laying down covering fire, making it sound like the whole club was still in position. 3 blocks through alleys and back streets, rain washing away their trail. The cargo van sat idling behind an abandoned warehouse, Prospect at the wheel looking terrified but steady. They piled in. Emma clutched Daniel's unconscious hand. The van's doors slammed shut. Where to, boss? The Prospect asked. Bruce didn't hesitate. Out of Reno, out of Nevada. We keep moving until we hit somewhere Covenant Medical can't reach. No such place exists, Wrench said quietly. Then we make one. Bruce looked at the faces of his brothers, at his daughter, at the kid who'd brought war to their doorstep simply by being worth saving. We make a place where family matters more than profits, where kids aren't property, where monsters in white coats learn that some people fight back. The van pulled away from the curb, headlights cutting through rain and darkness. Behind them, the Reno clubhouse burned. Ahead lay uncertainty, danger, and a war against an enemy with unlimited resources. But Bruce Iron Hand Maddox had his daughter. He had Daniel Cross. He had brothers willing to die protecting both. And somewhere in the night, running from everything they'd built, he discovered the truth about family that outlaw code had taught him decades ago. You don't choose family because it's safe. You choose it because some things matter more than survival, even if it kills you. The van disappeared into the storm, carrying refugees from a war that had just begun, toward a future nobody could predict. And in the burning clubhouse behind them, Bull watched through shattered windows as Covenant medical operatives realized they'd been chasing ghosts. Dr. Vance's scream of rage carried across the parking lot. The Iron Reapers had taken her prize, and now she'd hunt them to the ends of the earth to get it back. The point of no return had passed. The only direction left was forward, into whatever nightmare waited on the other side of tonight. The van's headlights cut through rain and darkness like knives through smoke. Bruce gripped the oh-shit handle above the passenger door, his other hand pressed against Emma's back where she lay curled against Daniel's unconscious form. The kid's breathing was shallow but steady, whatever sedative Dr. Vance had injected working its way through his system like poison. How far behind are they? Wrench asked from the driver's seat, knuckles white on the steering wheel. Chains checked the side mirror for the 100th time. Can't tell. Rain's too heavy, but they're coming. Count on it. The prospect, Tommy, barely 19, patched in 3 months ago, sat in back clutching an AR-15 like a lifeline. His hands shook, but his eyes stayed sharp. Good kid. Might live through this if they got lucky. Bruce's phone buzzed. Bull's name lit the screen. Talk to me. Bull's voice came through rough, punctuated by gunfire in the background. They pulled back 20 minutes ago. Regrouping. We scattered like you said. Most brothers are in the wind, but boss... He paused, heavy breathing. They're tracking you. Don't know how, but they are. Dr. Vance was on her radio coordinating pursuit before we even confirmed you'd left. How the fuck? Doesn't matter how. Matters that they know which direction you're heading. Maybe they tagged the van. Maybe they've got satellite surveillance. Either way, you've got company incoming. Bruce closed his eyes, processing. How many? Convoy of 4 vehicles left 5 minutes after you, full tactical teams. They're not playing anymore, boss. This is scorched earth. Copy that. Stay safe, brother. You too. And Bruce? Bull's voice softened slightly. You made the right call. Taking Emma and Daniel. Whatever happens next, remember that. The line went dead. Bruce turned to Chains. Check the van. Every inch. They might have planted a tracker. Chains and Mad Dog tore through the cargo area while the van continued its desperate flight through Reno's industrial district. They found it 3 minutes later, a small GPS tracker magnetically attached to the undercarriage, accessible from the wheel well. Clever, Mad Dog muttered, holding the device up to the dome light. Military grade, probably attached when we were loading up. Destroy it, Bruce ordered. Wait. Chains took the tracker, his scarred face thoughtful in the flickering light. We destroy it. They know we found it. Might as well paint a target on our backs. But if we move it to a different vehicle, we buy time and misdirection. Bruce's mind raced through possibilities. There. That semi at the truck stop. Wrench pulled into a 24-hour truck stop where a dozen 18-wheelers sat idling in the rain. Chains moved fast, attaching the tracker to a semi with California plates, and a load manifest for Los Angeles. Back in the van, Emma stirred against Daniel. Daddy, where are we? Somewhere safe, baby girl. Go back to sleep. Daniel won't wake up. Why won't he wake up? Bruce touched the kid's forehead. Clammy, pulse elevated. Whatever they'd given him was strong enough to drop an adult, let alone a malnourished 12-year-old. He'll be okay. Just needs to sleep it off. But Bruce didn't know that. Didn't know what cocktail of drugs Covenant pumped into their assets. Didn't know if Daniel would wake up at all or if that syringe had been meant to pacify him permanently if recovery looked unlikely. The thought made Bruce's hands curl into fists. They drove northeast, away from Reno, toward empty highway and sparse towns where streetlights were miles apart. Rain hammered the windshield. The van's wipers struggled to keep pace. Where are we going? Reaper asked from the back. As far as this tank of gas takes us. Then we figure out next steps. Boss, we need a real plan. Wrench's voice carried the strain of too many years watching brothers die from poor planning. We can't just drive forever. Covenant's got resources we can't match. Manpower we can't beat. Eventually they'll find us. I know. So what's the play? Bruce stared at the darkness beyond the windshield, at rain turning the world into a watercolor nightmare. We find somewhere defensible, somewhere we can make a stand, and we hurt them bad enough that they decide Daniel's not worth the cost. They've already invested 2 years hunting him, Mad Dog pointed out. Lost 3 operators tonight. Had their director personally humiliated. You think they'll just write that off? No. But I think we can make the price so high they reconsider their approach. Chains leaned forward. You're talking about killing Dr. Vance. The words hung in the air like cordite smoke. I'm talking about cutting the head off the snake. Vance is running this operation. Without her, Covenant loses its obsessive edge, becomes a bureaucratic nightmare of committees and risk assessment. Maybe they decide one kid isn't worth continued losses. Or maybe they send everything they've got to avenge her, Reaper said quietly. Then we deal with that when it comes. Daniel's eyes opened suddenly, unfocused and panicked. He tried to sit up, but Emma's weight and the sedative's lingering effects kept him down. Where? His voice cracked. What happened? Easy, kid. You're safe. We got you out. Daniel's eyes found Bruce's face, confusion giving way to memory. Emma. They wanted Emma too. They didn't get her. She's right here. Emma lifted her head, tear-stained face breaking into a smile. Daniel, you're awake. I told you to stay inside. Oh, I wasn't going to let them take you without a fight. Daniel's laugh turned into a cough. You're 6 years old. What were you going to do? I don't know. Something. Anything. Emma's voice went fierce. You're my friend. Friends don't let friends get taken by bad people. Daniel's eyes welled up. Bruce looked away, giving them privacy for a moment that felt stolen from a world trying to tear them apart. How long was I out? Daniel asked. Hour and change. How do you feel? Like I got hit by a truck full of tranquilizers. Daniel sat up slowly, Emma helping him. Where are we? Highway 80 eastbound, about 40 miles from Reno. They'll be following. We know. Bought ourselves some time with the tracker, but it won't last. Daniel processed this with the rapid calculation Bruce had seen before. The enhanced cognition Covenant had forced into his brain, working through tactical problems most kids his age couldn't conceive. You need to leave me, Daniel said finally. Find somewhere safe for Emma. Let me draw them away. Already had this conversation. Answer's still no. Bruce, they're going to kill everyone around me until they get what they want. That's how they operate. Systematic elimination of obstacles. You, Emma, your brothers, you're all obstacles now. Then they're going to learn that obstacles can fight back. Thunder cracked overhead. The rain intensified, turning the highway into a river. Wrench slowed to 40, struggling to maintain visibility. Chains's phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression going dark. Boss, Bull says Covenant's convoy just stopped following the semi. They figured out the tracker switch. How long? Unknown, but they're smart. They'll backtrack, check every possible route, use traffic cameras and satellite imagery to find us. So we've got maybe an hour before they narrow the search. If that. Bruce's mind worked through their limited options. They couldn't outrun a coordinated pursuit. Couldn't outfight superior numbers and equipment. Couldn't rely on law enforcement because Covenant owned too many badges and judges. That left one option. There, Bruce said, pointing at a sign barely visible through the rain. Exit 23, Copper Ridge. Wrench squinted at the highway marker. What's in Copper Ridge? Old mining town. Been abandoned since the 80s. But the Iron Reapers used to run meth labs out there before we got legitimate. I know the terrain, know the buildings, know where to set up a defense they won't see coming. You want to make a stand in a ghost town? I want to choose this battlefield instead of letting them choose it for us. Bruce looked at his brothers. Covenant's strength is planning, preparation, professional execution. But out there in abandoned buildings and mine shafts, that's chaos. That's our world. We might not win, but we'll bleed them so badly they'll think twice about the next kid they try to turn into property. Reaper grinned, the expression predatory in the dim light. I like it. Urban warfare in a ghost town. Level the playing field. Nothing about this is level, Mad Dog corrected. But it's better than getting hunted on open highway. Wrench took the exit. The off-ramp led to a 2-lane road cutting through scrubland and rocky hills. No streetlights. No other traffic. Just darkness and rain and the growing certainty that they were heading toward a confrontation that would end in blood. Copper Ridge appeared like something out of a post-apocalyptic nightmare. Abandoned buildings with shattered windows. Rusted mining equipment scattered across empty lots. Main Street lined with gutted storefronts and collapsing facades. The van stopped in front of what used to be a general store. Everyone climbed out into the rain, weapons ready, scanning for threats that weren't there yet. Emma pressed against Bruce's leg, staring at the ghost town with wide eyes. It's scary. Yeah, baby girl, but scary can be useful. Daniel was studying the buildings with that clinical focus. Good sight lines down Main Street, multiple defensive positions, lots of cover for ambush tactics. He looked at Bruce. They taught you military strategy in the club? They taught me to survive. Sometimes that means knowing when to run and when to dig in. Bruce turned to his brothers. Wrench, Mad Dog, scout the perimeter. Find us exit routes in case this goes sideways. Chains, inventory what we've got for weapons and ammo. Reaper, Tommy. Start setting up defensive positions. Upper floor windows with clear firing lanes. What about me? Daniel asked. You stay with Emma. Safe room in the back of that old hotel. Bruce pointed at a 3-story building that looked slightly less condemned than its neighbors. You two hide and don't come out until I personally come get you. I can help. You can help by keeping Emma safe. That's your mission. Everything else is ours. Daniel looked like he wanted to argue, but Emma grabbed his hand. Come on, I'm scared. I don't want to be alone. They disappeared into the hotel while Bruce's team turned the ghost town into a kill zone. It took 40 minutes to set up. 40 minutes of moving through rain-soaked buildings, positioning stolen rifles, marking clear firing lanes, establishing fallback positions. Chains did the math and reported back with a grim expression. We've got 12 magazines between 5 shooters, maybe 300 rounds total, against a fully equipped tactical team. Then we make every shot count. Boss, this is suicide. You know that, right? Bruce checked his gun's magazine, counted rounds he'd already counted twice. Maybe, but it's suicide on our terms. In a place we choose. Protecting people who matter. That's got to count for something. Thunder rolled across the hills. Lightning illuminated the ghost town in stark white flashes that made everything look like a photograph of hell. Bruce's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer. Yeah, Mr. Maddox? Dr. Vance's voice, clinical and cold as ever. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Good. I'm a fan of hard choices. Are you a fan of dead children? Because that's where this ends. Asset Cross Daniel will be recovered. The girl you're using as leverage will be secured for study, and everyone helping you will be eliminated as liability threats. Bruce's hand tightened on the phone hard enough to crack the case. You come near my daughter, and I will personally make sure your death takes days. Empty threats from a man with no tactical advantage. I've studied your file, Mr. Maddox. Prison record, assault charges, history of violence masquerading as protection. You're a thug with delusions of honor. And you're a monster in a lab coat who thinks children are property. At least I know what I am. What you are is surrounded. My teams are converging on your position. Thermal imaging shows 5 adult heat signatures and 2 children in the structure behind you. You have no escape routes, no reinforcements, no options except surrender. Then I guess we're doing this the hard way. There's no hard way, Mr. Maddox. There's only the inevitable. Return the assets and I'll ensure your death is quick. Fight, and I'll make sure you watch your daughter suffer before you die. The line went dead. Bruce looked at his brothers gathered in the rain. 5 men against a private army. Ridiculous odds. Impossible situation. They're coming, he said simply. How long? Wrench asked. Minutes. Maybe less. Bruce chambered around. Anyone wants to run, now's the time. No judgment. This isn't your fight. Nobody moved. Chains lit a cigarette with shaking hands. Fuck that. We're Iron Reapers. We don't run. We're also probably about to die, Mad Dog pointed out. Then we die protecting family. Reaper checked his rifle's scope. Worse ways to go. Bruce felt something tighten in his chest. Pride. Grief. Love for these violent, broken men who'd chosen brotherhood over survival. Positions, he ordered quietly. They scattered to pre-established spots. Bruce took the second-floor window of an old saloon with clear sight lines down Main Street. From here he could see the entire kill zone. The rain began to slow. Clouds parted slightly, allowing moonlight to paint everything in silver and shadow. Then he heard them. Not motorcycles. Tactical vehicles moving slow and quiet, engines barely audible over residual thunder. 4 SUVs appeared at the edge of town, headlights off, moving in coordinated formation. They stopped 300 yards out, doors opened, operators deployed with professional precision. Bruce counted heads through his rifle scope. 22. All armed, all trained, all moving like they'd done this 100 times before. Dr. Vance emerged from the lead vehicle, white coat stark against darkness. She raised a megaphone. Last chance, Mr. Maddox. Return the assets or watch everything you love burn. Bruce's finger found the trigger. He could take the shot. Drop her right now. Start this war on his terms. But the second he fired, Emma became a target. Daniel became forfeit. His brothers became casualties of a decision made in anger instead of strategy. So he waited. Dr. Vance waited too, apparently content to let tension build. Then Daniel's voice cut through the silence, young and clear and absolutely terrified. "I'm here. Don't hurt them. I'll come with you." Bruce's head snapped toward the hotel where Daniel stood in a third-floor window, Emma visible behind him trying to pull him back. "Daniel, no!" Emma's scream carried across the ghost town. "It's okay," Daniel called back. "This is how it has to end." Dr. Vance's expression shifted to something approaching triumph. "Asset cross Daniel. Step outside, hands visible. Any attempt at resistance will result in immediate termination of everyone present." Daniel disappeared from the window. Bruce watched him emerge from the hotel's front entrance 30 seconds later, hands raised, walking toward certain horror with the kind of courage most adults never found. "Kid, get back inside!" Bruce shouted. Daniel kept walking, 20 feet from the hotel. 30, 50. Covenant operators moved to intercept, weapons trained, forming a box around him. Then Emma did something that stopped Bruce's heart. She ran after him, burst from the hotel door and sprinted across open ground, her small voice carrying pure desperation. "Wait! Take me too! If he goes, I go!" "Emma!" Bruce's scream tore from his throat as he watched his daughter run straight into the arms of people who'd threatened to turn her into a lab experiment. Every protective instinct demanded he open fire. Kill everyone between himself and Emma, die trying to save her. But 22 operators had clear shots at a 6-year-old girl. He'd be signing her death warrant. Daniel caught Emma halfway to the Covenant line, wrapping his arms around her. "Go back. Please. This isn't your fight." "Yes, it is." Emma fought his grip. "You're my friend, and I won't let them take you alone." Dr. Vance's operators closed in, surrounding both children. She approached slowly, her expression calculating. "How touching. The asset has formed emotional bonds. That's valuable data." She gestured to an operator. "Secure them both. We'll transport to the Nevada facility for comprehensive evaluation." The operator reached for Emma. Bruce pulled the trigger. The shot took the operator through the hand reaching for his daughter. The man screamed, dropping to the ground. Every weapon swung toward Bruce's position. But Chains, Wrench, Mad Dog, Reaper, and Tommy had already opened fire from their positions. The ghost town erupted into chaos. Operators scattered for cover. Return fire shattered windows and punched holes through rotting wood. Bruce was moving before conscious thought caught up, leaving his position, sprinting downstairs and through the saloon's back door. He had one goal: reach Emma before someone decided she was more trouble than she was worth. Gunfire rattled through the night. Someone screamed. Glass exploded. Bruce cleared the alley behind the saloon and came out on Main Street 20 yards from where Emma and Daniel huddled on the ground, operators forming a shield wall around Dr. Vance. "Emma!" Bruce raised his gun, targeting the nearest operator. The man turned toward him. Bruce fired twice. Center mass. The operator went down. Another took his place. Bruce's gun clicked empty. No time to reload. He dropped it and charged barehanded like an animal, every tactical lesson forgotten in the face of his daughter's danger. He hit the second operator like a freight train, both of them crashing into mud and shattered pavement. Fists connected with faces. Knees found ribs. Bruce fought with the desperate fury of a father watching his child's life hang by threads. A boot caught him in the head. Stars exploded across his vision. Someone grabbed his arm, twisting it behind his back hard enough to dislocate. He roared pain and rage, thrashing against the hold. "Daddy!" Emma's voice cut through the violence. Bruce looked up through blood and rain to see his daughter being dragged toward an SUV. Daniel fought beside her, landing kicks and bites that did nothing against armored operators who handled them like packages instead of people. "Let them go!" Bruce's voice was raw. "Take me! I'm the one who hurt your people. They're just kids." Dr. Vance appeared above him, her face illuminated by burning vehicles where Molotov cocktails had found targets. "You're right, Mr. Maddox. They are just children, which makes them perfect subjects. Malleable, trainable, valuable." She nodded to someone behind Bruce. "Execute him. Bring both assets to transport." A gun barrel pressed against the back of Bruce's skull. This was it. End of the line. He'd failed Emma, failed Daniel, failed everyone who'd trusted him to protect what mattered. The gun's hammer clicked back. Then the night exploded with the roar of motorcycle engines. Dozens of them, converging from every direction. Iron Reapers, Mongrels, Devil's Disciples, every allied club within 200 miles, descending on Copper Ridge like avenging angels riding steel horses. Bull led the charge, his Harley screaming through the ghost town's entrance, brothers spreading out behind him in a coordinated assault that turned the tactical situation on its head. The operator holding Bruce released him to engage new targets. Bruce rolled, grabbed a dropped rifle, and came up firing. Dr. Vance was running for her vehicle. Bruce tracked her movement, squeezed the trigger. The rifle clicked empty. Covenant operators were falling back, their organized formation crumbling under the unexpected reinforcement. They'd planned for 5 defenders, not 50 bikers willing to die protecting family. Bruce fought through the chaos toward Emma. She and Daniel had been dropped during the confusion, both children crawling toward the relative safety of an overturned vehicle. "Emma!" Bruce reached them, pulling his daughter into his arms while Daniel pressed against his side. "Daddy, you're bleeding." "I'm fine, stay close, don't let go." Gunfire continued, but the tide had turned. Covenant's operators were in full retreat, loading into SUVs and peeling away into darkness. They'd lost too many, faced too much resistance. Dr. Vance was the last to leave, her white coat visible through the window of the lead SUV as it accelerated away. She was screaming into a radio, her face twisted with rage. Then they were gone. The ghost town fell silent except for the idle rumble of motorcycles and heavy breathing from men who'd just fought for their lives. Bull appeared through the smoke, his face covered in blood from a scalp wound. "Everyone alive?" Bruce did a quick head count, Chains holding his shoulder where a bullet had grazed, Wrench limping, Mad Dog applying pressure to Tommy's leg wound, Reaper somehow untouched, checking his rifle like nothing had happened. "We're alive." "Good." Bull looked at the burning wreckage scattered across Main Street. "Because we need to move. They'll be back with heavier firepower, and next time they won't hesitate." Emma was crying against Bruce's chest. Daniel sat in the mud, staring at nothing, processing how close they'd come to being recaptured. Bruce looked at his brothers, the ones who'd stayed, the ones who'd come, the ones who'd ridden into hell because the call went out that family needed help. "Thank you," he said quietly. "All of you. For coming." "That's what family does," Bull said simply. "Now let's get the fuck out of here before those corporate psychopaths regroup." They mounted up. Emma rode with Bruce, Daniel with Chains. The convoy of motorcycles rolled out of Copper Ridge as dawn began breaking over the hills, painting the sky in shades of blood and fire. Behind them, the ghost town smoldered. Ahead lay uncertainty. But they were together. And in the outlaw world, that was the only victory that mattered. Dr. Vance's voice crackled over Bruce's dropped phone, still lying in the mud. "This isn't over, Mr. Maddox. I will hunt you to the ends of the earth. I will take everything you love. And when I finally have you broken and bleeding, you'll beg me to let you die." The phone's battery died, cutting her off mid-threat. Bruce throttled his Harley, the engine roaring beneath him, carrying Emma toward whatever came next. The war with Covenant Medical wasn't over. It was just beginning. But he'd learned something tonight in that ghost town firefight. Some things were worth fighting impossible odds to protect. And he'd keep fighting until his last breath gave out, because that's what fathers did. That's what the Brotherhood meant. And Bruce Iron Hand Maddox had never learned how to quit. 3 weeks after Copper Ridge, Bruce stood in the parking lot of a truck stop diner somewhere outside Elko, watching sunrise paint the Nevada desert in shades of copper and gold. His ribs still ached from where that operator's boot had connected. The cut above his eye had scarred over into a thin white line that Emma traced sometimes when she thought he was sleeping. The convoy of motorcycles sat silent in the early morning cold. 50 brothers scattered across picnic tables and parking spaces, drinking coffee that tasted like burnt rubber and eating eggs that had probably been powdered before anyone cooked them. Nobody complained. They were alive. Fed. Together. That counted for everything. Inside the diner, Daniel sat in a corner booth with Emma, both of them working through a coloring book someone had bought at a gas station 2 states back. Emma was explaining colors again, the way she'd done every day since regaining sight, like the world might take it away if she stopped naming everything she saw. Bull appeared at Bruce's shoulder, 2 cups of coffee in his scarred hands. "Heard from our contact at the FBI. Bruce accepted the coffee without looking away from his daughter. And? Covenant Medical's Nevada facility got raided 4 days ago. Federal and state agencies, search warrants for everything from tax fraud to human experimentation. They found evidence, lots of it. Documents, test subjects, bodies. Dr. Vance? Arrested trying to board a private plane to Brazil. Fighting extradition, but she's not winning. Too many agencies want her. Too much evidence. Bull took a long drink, steam curling around his face. It's over, boss. The corporate monster's been slayed. Bruce should have felt relief, triumph, something approaching victory. Instead, he just felt tired. How many kids did they find? Bull's expression went dark. 17 still alive. Another 33 in unmarked graves behind the research wing, ages ranging from 6 to 15. The coffee turned to ash in Bruce's mouth. 50 children, 50 families destroyed, 50 lives turned into data points and research metrics by people in white coats who'd convinced themselves that progress justified horror. Daniel doesn't know yet, Bruce said quietly, about the other kids. You gonna tell him? Eventually. When he's ready to process that he wasn't the only one, that his mother tried to stop something bigger than either of them understood. Bull nodded, understanding settling between them without need for additional words. They'd both lived through trauma that took years to unpack. Daniel would need time, space, safety. The Brotherhood could provide all three. What's the plan now? Bull asked. We can't keep running forever. Kids need stability. School. Normal lives. Normal? Bruce laughed without humor. Yeah, we're real experts on normal. You know what I mean. Bruce did. He'd been thinking about it for 3 weeks while they moved from motel to safe house to borrowed cabin, always one step ahead of Covenant's remaining operatives until the FBI raid gutted the organization completely. I've got a place in mind, Bruce said finally. Montana, small town called Whitewood, population 300. Nearest federal facility is 200 miles away. Bought a property there 10 years ago when I thought about going straight. Never did anything with it. What kind of property? 15 acres. Main house needs work, but it's livable. Couple outbuildings we could convert to garage space. Enough land for Emma and Daniel to run around without worrying about neighbors calling cops because they saw a scarred biker teaching kids to ride motorcycles. Bull almost smiled. Sounds peaceful. Sounds boring as hell, but maybe boring is what they need. What about the club? You're still president. Bruce looked at the brothers scattered across the truck stop. Men who'd ridden into hell because family called. Men who'd abandoned jobs and homes and regular lives to protect 2 children they barely knew. Club's always been about more than territory and business, Bruce said. It's about standing up for people who can't stand up for themselves. Protecting the ones society throws away. We did that. We'll keep doing it. Just maybe from Montana instead of Reno. You're talking about rebranding, shifting focus. I'm talking about evolution. The world doesn't need more outlaws running guns and working protection rackets, but it needs people willing to fight for kids like Daniel, kids falling through cracks, kids nobody sees. Bull was quiet for a long moment, processing the implications. That's a different club, different mission. Same Brotherhood, just aimed at something that matters more than profits. Movement caught Bruce's eye. Daniel had slid out of the booth and was walking toward them, his bare feet, still bare after 3 weeks because he refused to wear shoes except when absolutely necessary, silent on cold pavement. Can I talk to you? Daniel asked, his voice carrying the careful tone of someone approaching a difficult subject. Always. What's on your mind? Or